Bring 'em.
All right, we are back in after lunch. Thank you, everyone. We apologize for being a little delayed on getting back. So before we get started, I know Commissioner Riggin is here, and we had some questions around, I think it was the bridge fund. Did we have any for the commissioners too?
The
Yeah, the
engineer,
engineer.
the new line item. Yes, and I apologize. I've always trusted some of the other commissioners to do this, and I was not aware that they were not able to. But it is my idea. Since I've been commissioner now for 12 years, and the first year or two, I just knew that we really did need some outside help as an engineer, a civil engineer especially. So I go to road school and I hear these things at the famous road school about how an engineer can help you. And we have only budgeted 70,000, so maybe we're going to look at maybe a part-time engineer to start with. But to give you a little history, back in 1988 or so, they had to build some timber bridges. They just didn't have enough money to do the 20-foot spans. So they were able to install 38 of those timber bridges that were supposed to be temporary. Well, since Mr. King and I have been in office, we've replaced about 3 or 4 of them. So we know there's more down the road. So I think we're down to 30 now. So I found out there was one county that did their own bridges of that size with their engineer that would make the design and do the flood plains and all the right of way and all stuff. And they can build a bridge for $50,000. We have been spending, I think, is Carrie here, about 600,000. Angie, about 600,000 for a big culvert to go in. Now the big culverts are very nice and they'll last, probably 30 or 40 years, if not more. But these little bridges that this one county was doing was costing them $50,000 with their own engineer on staff. And then my elevator speech that I give quite often is that we have 15 buildings, soon to be 16, 193 bridges that were over, less than 800 miles of road, which also means less than 1,600 miles of side ditches. And if you don't keep all of those updated properly, they're going to deteriorate. And we just need someone in charge that's keeping track of all these capital expenses. Any questions?
Sure, I know this has been something, I think as long as I've been on council, you have been requesting or wanting to request this position.
So, Sherry, I think that my initial concern relative to was the the 70 grand, who are we gonna get? There was conversations yesterday from Angie that, that's not gonna cover everything, obviously, we're gonna still pay consultants on top of that.
Well, and I will say we've had county engineers before, and Angie does such a good job for us. I mean, she carries around a book this thick, and when we've hired a engineer, we did not give them any part-time staff to help with their work, and so it was kind of moved to the engineering department, which is really not fair because they're very busy as is. So I was hoping we could take some money out of stormwater, maybe highway, and maybe even we could ask drainage to help us, so it wouldn't all come out of just county general.
With this engineer, now it's under Hume Bridge is where it is.
Yes, that's where they put it.
And would they be able to perform services outside of bridge work?
Well, that's a good question, I guess. I would think, but if we spread it out, like I'm thinking we could.
If they had part line items
Right.
elsewhere. second then it was raised that perhaps a portion of that salary could be reimbursed by the state.
Oh, yes, yes, we must, throw this out. A few years ago, the state would reimburse each county that had an engineer $20,000. That is now up to $40,000 that they will reimburse you. So that tells you the state knows that you should have an engineer on site.
So, Commissioner Reagan, you're saying of the 70,000, 40,000 of it is reimbursable by
Yes,
the
sir.
state?
Yes, sir.
I have one question.
Sure,
I've brought this up a couple different times.
sure.
You know, a couple years back, I was a quality inspector working for rebar coating company, and I learned some things about rebar. And I brought this up to Angie about my concern. You know, they did the bridge report, and I think it's like 80% of the bridges are deficient and structurally deficient and needing work. Concern I brought up is that we have more than half of our bridges are more than double the life expectancy of the bridge. You know, black bar rebar is only meant to be 35 years, and we haven't used it since the 70s. So all those bridges with that black bar rebar are porous, they're rusting, and they're well beyond their life expectancy. Is it your position that this engineer, you said someone who could keep track of these things, would then possibly make them some type of a priority? Because I know right now
Well,
what
I
they're
hadn't
doing
heard about this,
is they break.
so that's even worse. But I will tell you this, every 2 years, the federal government demands that we do each bridge inspection. And we were so disappointed that I believe one bridge had been, I could be off a little bit on my dates, but one bridge had been inspected, let's say, in January of '22. In January or the spring of '23, a piece of that bridge fell through out there on 332. And, you know, it's hard, maybe when they do those inspections, things just happen, I don't know. But
what
boy,
it
that
is-
really worries me because I had not heard about that rebar.
Well, what it is the reason that fell through is those concrete's porous. And that black bar, when that concrete, that water seeps through, it gets on that rebar and it rusts and expands and it chips away the concrete. That's why it fed through. If you drive down any highway, you'll see green rebar all on, those are epoxy coated. Those last 80-year bridges,
What year did they start building those?
70s. the
70s, so the
mid-70s.
ones before,
So
yeah.
anything that has black bar rebar in it was only meant to be 35 years, and we're
Yeah.
50, 60 years ahead of that now at this point. So my concern was, are we categorizing those bridges? Maybe they haven't failed yet, but they're gonna. And
And,
going back and prioritizing them when we're gonna replace them.
and you're welcome to come and see our bridge report. We get 2 big thick binders and they take pictures and then they have maintenance, what they recommend. And we just can't keep up with it,
There's a
really.
lot. I mean, you said, what, a couple hundred or whatever? There's a lot of bridges in the county. The other
Yeah.
question was, are you sure that 600,000 for that culvert? Because.
Yeah, I
isn't a
don't know.
regular bridge like $1 million? Isn't a regular bridge total
Well, these are
replacement
just
like $1
kind
million?
of the small timber bridges they were replacing.
Okay.
Yeah, they're just the 22-foot maybe. Not the big ones, yeah.
A lot of them.
We have 30, so, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
How many can you replace a year?
I'm sorry?
In the budget, how many are you trying to replace a year?
You know, I really don't have that data, but we just, Angie has a list and she has a company that does the inspections and then she goes by that list kind of, and she can tell you about 5 years out or 6 years out. And that's the thing, we're making plans right now to replace the 12th Street Bridge. And I think that doesn't start until 2027. So, you know, you're way out in there. And she does a real good job with all of her funds and working with the Plan Commission on grants that we can get and feds.
Sherry, has there been any discussion with the city or sanitary district or anybody else who may also have or want to share?
You know, I thought about that, but I think the city, he's just covered. And I really would like to have someone that I could call that morning and say, can you meet me at 2:00 to go out and look at something? But, I mean, that's a possibility. I would like to. The city and the county did have that one time, but I don't know how well it worked. I wasn't around then.
City doesn't have that many bridges, do they?
No, we take care of all the bridges, but we're just talking about a civil engineer that would help.
Yeah, this is beyond.
Yeah.
This has to be beyond bridges, I guess is my
Right.
statement on this. And that's the concern with the 70K not being able to cover.
Yeah,
You
but,
know,
but that
or
is
they
a
only
good
get-
question. But I really did think we could find a little money in some of our other departments, but we kind of put this 70,000 in at the last minute just to get started. But I will tell you this also, the new building that we're building out there, we need to have an inspector out there to keep things moving. And, I suppose we could hire someone retired to check that, but, when you build a building that size, you want to make sure things are done properly, and, yeah, we still have some issues at the 3100 that I'm not happy about, but things happen,
3,100 with
The Justice Center.
well, yeah.
yeah.
You're talking about the mental health facility.
Well, I'm talking about the new one, but the old one, there was,
Yeah, I know. But when you, I guess I'm concerned with what you just said.
well, a perfect example, you know, they always usually go with a low bidder. And I was out there when they were putting in the wiring ones, and I was asking this young man, you know, working, and, I said, why aren't we having a dimmer on that switch? Well, it didn't call for a dimmer, so some lights stay on longer than they should, and it's just not good, and,
So, relative to that building and the mental health building, you're thinking that if we had a county engineer or somebody who was responsible for the oversight of that, because right now, who is responsible for that? You guys, the commissioners?
I mean, was this something that if we did agree to add that position, that the commissioners would be willing to split the cost with us? Like edit money?
well, I think we could use some of our edit money, you know, because, you know, it all depends if you want to give them a car and an administrative assistant, you know, some of that could come out of edit.
We got cars all over the county.
Yeah, we have, that's something I'd like to get a control of our fleet, is just here and there and everywhere.
That was one of my concerns was, to get a hold of an engineer, and then he's gonna want somebody, a secretary or something, and
Yeah.
then now you've got two people.
Well, not,
and then you've
not
got a car,
full-time,
and then
not
it just
full-time.
goes on and on.
You
Yeah.
can't tell me that he probably couldn't get someone 24 hours a week, someone that could work from home and do some things. I don't know, but yeah, I'm not talking full-time, that's for sure. And if we went as a consultant, we wouldn't maybe have benefits either, so there's different ways to look at it.
Like a contract employee as a consultant to avoid the full-time benefits.
Yeah.
But then when we wouldn't get the 40,000 reimbursement.
Well,
if
we
they
have to
weren't-
check into that.
they
Yeah,
weren't
that's,
actually
that's a good
employed.
point.
And we kind of already have, I think Angie was saying that we have two different engineering firms that she currently works with that kind of focus on
Right.
different,
One's, I think that contract's 15,000, and she can call and get them to sign off on things for her. I'm sorry,
they were 30. yeah,
15.
30.
Oh, is it,
Total-
it's gone up?
30,
Oh, I
yeah.
didn't realize
For
that.
each.
For two, oh, for each
For a
of them.
total of 60.
Oh, I'm behind times then.
Things aren't cheap.
I've been around here, I guess, too long and not keeping up with inflation.
yesterday,
Oh,
Angie
yeah,
sent
for
it to
60,
me
That's
as
what we
well.
used to have with the old council. Ron and Mary still thought $10 an hour was good money. It happens. It creeps up on us quick.
Time flies. I can't believe it's been 12 years.
So I guess, I mean, I'll just state my
Sure.
discretion. I appreciate that we need it, definitely. I just don't, I would not, want to approve something with maybe a little bit more, without a more concrete plan in place to make sure that we're gonna utilize that effectively out of the gate. To start here and then have to come back, and when we come back, we need 50 more grants, so we can hire somebody more, or we need to hire another body, we're gonna still do the consultants or whatever. And I'm not saying that this position would be 100% bulletproof, I'm sure it wouldn't. But there's a lot of concern that, you know, still a high dollar position, yeah, we may be able to get reimbursed. And if we are gonna get 40K, then maybe we need to go and start it out higher, actually.
Grand.
And go from there, cause, and who's, you know, who's gonna oversee this person?
Well, the commissioners are, Yeah, they'd be one of our appointees.
And I guess to kind of piggyback on Matt there, that there is some opportunity for more details. When we were at our statewide convention for county councils back in June, there are some counties that actually share their engineer.
I have heard that
And I
recently.
didn't know, like, have we had any, I say we, the county have any
Yeah,
conversations with surrounding counties, if that's something like Blackford, and we could like have a shared engineer, 'cause I think
that's a
it,
possibility.
who was it? We talked to so many other counties at that event, but, I mean, that would also help, I would think, if there was an opportunity to get to Matt's point too, like, civil engineers, they make a lot more than 70, probably right out of college.
Well, that's what I think what John put in, just part-time maybe.
Oh, it's a part-time, okay. Well, yeah, then I'd be quite, if it
That's
was,
another reason then, if
And
it's
then-
part-time execution,
and
you
then-
know, we're gonna go hire somebody, a consultant even potentially at
get
70K.
that 40.
Can I make a comment
Yeah,
on
actually,
that?
because
So,
Ben's got it pulled up.
in order, it appears that in order to qualify for that, the grant and subsidy that the state would provide, the auditor has to certify annually that the county employs a full-time county highway engineer. However, you are allowed to share with other counties, and then both counties, if they're both sharing the one full-time between the two of them, they could still both receive $40,000. So in that way, you would be able to potentially double up on the grant funds between the two counties, but it does have to be a full-time, even if shared between two counties.
So like we could like, in theory, if we get it, we could then start shopping other counties to see if they want to have us.
Well, start shopping them now and then come back.
I'm not gonna,
appropriate
I
this.
don't
Yeah,
mind approving
yeah,
that for.
yeah.
You said that both counties would get
40.
correct? So you're starting with arbitrarily speaking of 80,000 base pay, then we could augment that to get a more experienced engineer
But if we're
another county.
another county, we would totally be in the right price point for a,
I wish
A
that
good
legwork
civil
had already
engineer.
been done before coming on that budget. You
yeah.
know,
Well,
if
and
we
like
would've
she said, it was kind of just thrown in there. It's been our pipe dream for a long time, and
Was-
so
Yeah,
think it's
I
always good to have
appreciate
that
them putting it
discussion.
in,
Yeah.
but that's unreal that you split them and then you're still gonna get the 40, so.
It says, that upon certification, as we talked about by the auditor, the comptroller will distribute the funds, the subsidy of $40,000 to be applied towards the engineer's annual salary. If the county highway engineer is employed by two counties acting jointly, the amount distributed to each county is $40,000.
Yeah, that's-
So
Yeah,
it seems like you can share with one other and get
That also tells me that 70 is probably nowhere near what's needed.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you literally, a civil engineer is going to make more
yeah.
just graduating from.
But the 70 would, be,
It'd be a good halfway point. If they
Halfway,
match this at
yeah.
70, and like
Who's they? The commissioner?
who I know, whatever a county,
Oh.
if we could partner with another county on it. Mm-hmm.
I'd be glad to do some research before your adoption. See,
Even
I think
if we
it's-
were to not adopt it, I would still, even if we were to say no at this time, I would still say go and research it. And I mean, if it's something that we all agree on later, you can always come back for an appropriation. Not saying we'll give it to you,
Right,
but I think there's just more info we can collect and,
If there was a plan, I would be more comfortable with
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Preferably before you got any an inspection on that mental health facility.
And then I would bounce it off your fellow commissioners, they'd be open to splitting it with us. I'd probably,
I mean, I don't disagree, because she said, can we pull money out of highway, can we pull money out of other, I think there's money there. So that is something that if there's an appropriation required at some point, we could find, I think we could look at
Make it
that
work,
option.
probably, yeah. I think just more details.
well, I appreciate you
Yeah.
giving me the opportunity,
Yeah.
Thank you.
we
even though
appreciate you showing
I
up.
won't hold it against you. You're
Thank
just
you.
doing your due diligence. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you, Sherry.
commissioner.
All right. Is there someone else? No. Okay.
Is there rumor that some of these people actually have lives?
set an end time for today?
Sure, we wanna,
What are you thinking? I don't,
well, I kinda was thinking we just start at the front of the book and start going through county general. And then, I mean, if, I know we have people that need to leave, like if we wanna close up at 5, give everyone their evening. I know Matt and I have some nerdy computer stuff we probably wanna catch up on relative to the budget, and then meet back here in the morning.
Okay.
8:30 again tomorrow, wrap up around 5 and come back tomorrow.
Objection to that? No objection. Sounds like a plan.
Are you good with that?
Yep,
good.
All right, let's plan on that. We're not keeping you any later than 5 tonight, friends. But we'll be back tomorrow. All right, so let's go back, let's start at page 1, because this is all in order, right, Elizabeth, from county general, and then the grants and stuff are towards the back of the book. What I'm kind of thinking, and you guys can let me know what your thoughts are, one of the things Matt and I are doing are trying to, like, we're, each line item in our digital copy, we're trying to get the, leveling number in the midpoint matched up with each job, because some of the names are a little bit different, than what we received from WIS, and just trying to match that up. So maybe not necessarily look at adjusting the salaries yet, just confirming we're matching up the right line. And then I think anything else outside of, salaries, we start, is this a want or a need? Because Matt brought it to my attention, when you take out salary increases, we're at like 4.5 million in other expenses that have increased in county general alone. So I think that's where we kind of start looking, and if we can get to a good place and then figure in those, go to salaries after that. I mean, that's my thought. Are we good with that, or does someone have another suggestion?
Tanya, tell me again, what are projected, income over expenses for 2025 currently?
For general? Elizabeth, can we get that for you? Is it just for general?
Well, like, what's our number that we're gonna have to, what number are we trying to hit?
That's that,
It's difficult.
that's that cut number down here, that general,
The 3884, right?
3.8.
Huh, 3.8?
3.8 out of general, 1.3 out of lit.
3.8 out of the proposed 2025,
Right,
correct? Okay.
right.
9, really.
But what do we have to spend then?
What is that, based off of what operating balance?
I would like to point out, you're saying 3.8. However, we discussed very first day of making the balance that stays in there at all times.
Right.
6 to 6.5.
Right,
If that's the case, then you would need to add that 500,000
Add $500,000.
to
Okay.
that 3884, making it 4.4.
4.4?
I have a question on that real
Okay.
quick, before we go. I was listening to that yesterday on the operating balance, and I know I brought this up before. I understand the argument that costs have went up. When I think of first year on the council, we did operating balance of 5 million. And that was only 2-3 years ago. The costs have went up, but, you're talking about like a 40% increase at 6.5 million from, 4.5 to 5 million. That's a big increase in the operating balance. Furthermore, we're bringing in revenue that's far greater than we had at any point in that time. We got 3 million in extra interest money that we brought in from Mr. Polk. Sheriff's Department's bringing in $1.5 million from the inmates. There's 4.5 million in revenue that we didn't have 2 years ago, and we ran a $5 million operating balance then. So I still question the need for a 6.5 million. I don't think it's really
I believe we were still borrowing money.
necessary. No, I've never borrowed money since I've
No,
been
in
on
the
the council.
2020 budget
Ever.
was the first, so what we passed in
2020 was
19.
the first.
Yeah, we passed our 2020 budget in 2019. That was the first time in 30, it was like 30 years that we had approved a budget that did not require us borrowing from the bank. So 2020 is the first year where that actually went into place.
Yep. It was, yeah, 'cause
And
the
that's
year
the
before I
year
got.
you came in.
And yeah, so we've never had to
next year.
borrow, and then we did really well. And I understand the costs have went up. I think we can hold it to 6 million. I don't think that's that big of a
What's the
stretch.
lowest our balance has been this year? Or do we have to do a early draw? Like,
Here, I mean, I can tell you, when I said last year, when I had to get to doing the advanced draw,
Yeah.
we were down to 250,000.
Mhm.
I mean, that's low. That is super, super low
Right.
when you're talking about.
But we were also just getting our federal inmate movement off the ground. That's now in full swing. Tony's talking about even bringing on more inmates. That revenue input is much more consistent than it was in the time period you're talking about.
We went off of what was turned in for revenue.
What do you mean?
Each department's required to turn in their revenue projections.
And we have that,
We based all this on all the
Right.
numbers.
That's in this sheet.
this one here.
Well, projections and actual revenue is two different things. When she says we got down to 200,000, that's based off of actual revenue.
Yep.
What I'm talking about is real revenue that's now coming in that wasn't coming in at that time. So when she
No,
says
no,
we
no.
could come down to
It's
200,
not real to next year. So it's projected right now.
real because they're at the max point on the number of inmates. They didn't have it at the time. They had like 10 inmates, if that. If you remember, it got off to a slow start on those federal inmates. So the money coming in didn't even really come in until the second half of the year. We're now starting off the year at full speed, full capacity on federal inmates, which means the income revenue generated from that is at full capacity, which wasn't there when she was down to 200,000.
For the time being, could we say we're going to aim for a cash balance of not less than 6 million, but it could be more than that, but not more than 6.5?
Yeah, I'm fine with
Go
that.
with the range.
Give us a target, because we're not gonna hit it exactly anyway.
I mean, we do whatever the council wants. I just
I'm
wanted to bring
okay
that
with
up.
the range. I
I
mean,
thought we
that,
were good at
that
6.
gives us a little extra wiggle room. I'm okay with
I mean,
that.
if Ed came and said, if we're at 6 million and we may have to borrow, that's a question.
It takes more than 30 days to borrow money.
How long does it take?
What's the answer to the question though?
What was the
We're not in the
question?
bank.
Well, but based on last year's revenue and expenses, we're already talking about adding additional expenses this year. So we got to have to me, we got to have a little bigger float.
If we have a $6 million operating balance and we have to borrow, then we've got bigger problems.
We're gonna have bigger problems. If we increase our expenses, that
Our-
200,000 is gonna be eaten up just overnight.
But our revenue is up $4.5 million more than what it was. That's what I'm saying. Yes, our expenses are up, but they're not up 4.5 million. Our revenue that we're bringing in is greater than our expenses.
The proposed increase is 4.5 right now.
Right.
That eats up all that.
No, that's not
Proposed
that's
increase
not the
was
total.
7,300,000.
No, I'm talking about without the
General.
salaries. I'm talking, no salaries included,
And that also included the pension double
and the council, which is, yeah.
close to 2.
more
I'm
like
gonna ask
three,
again,
probably.
Tanya, can you give me the 2025 income versus
Projected
projected
revenue
revenue,
for
2025,
general. or
Yes, general.
general?
It's right here on your sheet that says Form 2.
Yeah.
On page 1. This column, your first column, that's gonna be for the remainder of this year. That's for July through December. If you go to the far right column at the bottom, that's gonna be for the year of 2025. The gray line is the total for general on page 1.
No, that's not it either. It's
It's the 16 million.
That's double the revenue.
So that's half a year, and the other's a full year.
Yeah. The first column
This figure.
is, look at the top, July
Right.
1st through
Okay.
December 31st, 2024. So that's your projected for the remainder of this year. Then January 1st through December 31st, 2025 is the next column. So
Is-
it's not double.
sure it's
But is
You're
the
just only
24
half of it.
Is 24 actual revenue or projected revenue?
This is projected because
25.
the budget is done in advance to, I mean, sometimes we're past July, obviously.
No, I
by
get
the
that.
time we have
I'm
our
saying it's
hearings, but
24. Is 24's actual or projected? Okay. Well, I'm
Has to be. We're not to the December yet.
trying to get that. That's my point I'm making. Our revenues were higher this year than what we originally projected on our tax revenue or our interest rate revenue and our inmates that we brought in.
Art, I mean, I've been asking for a cash flow, the cash position report, right? That been getting sent, right? So for county general, ending balance 8/31, 8,742,000. again, that's August, and then in June, it was, as of June 30th, it was 11 million something. And again, I know that's not the accurate figure, but it does show, you know, the net expenses, the net revenue, you know, coming in and what have you. And so again, that balance for the year is or is not up.
I mean, she covered that in the very beginning of budget as
I
far
know, but
as.
we don't seem to be able to get a straight answer on like this
What
straightforward,
more
like,
answer do you want from me? I don't.
why
know
do we
what-
need to go to 6.5 million? And is it based on the figures of our cash flow this year?
That was based on running 3 years of reports that Ed and I pulled, and it was based on the amount of expenditures he was seeing versus, it's more like on a month to month. It's not always like, it's not always
Even.
even Steven, yes.
Mhm.
So each month can vary, and I think it's just a matter of, one month might be really, really, you know, short, not short, but I mean like getting
Close,
iffy,
yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Cutting it close. And then your other months are looking really good. So it's not necessarily as a grand total for the year, because I mean, I see what you guys see as well. I mean, we're looking at the numbers and she pointed them all out. We let you know that as of the end of this year, what's our projected ending balance for 2024? We're at 9. Last year we were at 7. You know what I mean? So it's up to you. I'm just letting you know that we discussed that at the
Yeah.
beginning of the budget, and if you were going to account for that, you would need to add that to
Yep.
that 3.8.
Yep. So, you know, I know these numbers won't match up, like you said, even Steven, but if you take the second half of this year, multiply it by 2, you end up with like 17.8 million, which is actually more than what is it projected for 25.
I would like to, just from my perspective, for an account of fiscal accountability, I would, for my own purpose, as I'm working my way through these cuts, in my head, we're gonna cut the number to get down to a $6 million operating balance, right? If we end up having a $6.5 million, then so be it.
No less than 6, no more than 6.5.
I think that's a good formula to go by.
Yeah.
To
Start
make it there and, or even better than that, who knows?
If it goes over 6.5, what are you gonna do with the money?
Put it, get it back to the employees.
Or just,
We're not gonna run out of places to put money.
so my point being that you just plan to spend it? Or do you gonna put it in a rainy day fund? What's your,
I
you
don't know.
suggest, when you,
If that ever happens,
well, we've not been below 6.5 this year.
if that ever happens, we'll deal with it. I don't know.
I mean,
Okay,
I
I
don't care
think,
what you do, I'm just raising a question. When you make the statement, if it's over that, what do you
Yeah.
do with the money?
well, I would say we'd put it back into employees, is where I'd like to go see it.
What is,
That's
we're not even
making
there.
my
yet.
argument.
Yeah,
Why
we're,
do we
we're,
only
we're
need $6 million?
hypothetical. Let's go to page 1. Please, and thank you.
We're gonna answer that. How much?
I'm listening. All right, so from what I recall on this fund, there really wasn't any this is all needs, not wants, correct?
Usually it is with IT.
Yeah, and, okay, I'll just answer its question. Let's throw 300 grand to IT so we can actually get some of the wish list things started. That would be a start. You know,
I think the whole time,
in terms of where it is right there on paper, I think we just, I mean,
Okay. So we've all agreed that at this moment, these are all needs and we're good with page 1.
Yep.
Okay. Page 2, Title 40 Court.
One question I had
Yep.
was the process that Emily described of replacing all their computers at the same time once every 4 years. wonder if we couldn't break this up and get them more on a schedule of a few each year. That's just not in line with what we've discussed.
Yeah, there's seven, well, it's probably just good practice anyway to always
Right.
be rotating.
Yeah,
so-
we can change that this year if you wanna, I can look at my numbers and give you a new number and span it out over 3 years.
Yeah.
Usually 3-year plan for a small office is doable,
Okay,
Well, you
and
s-
you may come back with a different number and tell you
can
what
give-
I'm
give you
replacing
the-
for a
give you
3-year
the number
plan.
right now. You said it was 7.5 computers.
You can't just do that,
Why?
cause you've got Microsoft Office, you got a
Different
PC,
software.
you got monitor, and I don't wanna, I wanna split it up so it's even over the next 3 years. Give me a couple minutes.
Can we,
That's
well,
good.
I'm gonna reiterate that though.
That's what I was
If
looking
every computer's on a 4-year cycle, roughly, it should be at least.
I can do
in today's
4.
world. 4 years, you should be able to get 4 years. If you're leasing the computer, it'd be 4 years.
4, okay, you want 4 cycle?
I think 4 years is the.
Mine
Anybody disagrees.
Mine and the courts are on 5, cause I have so many. So you would do 4.
But to Bill's point, with like, how do we get it into a cycle where it's not, you're doing X, 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 and then X, 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 X.
Well, that's what we did. I just started it.
Yeah.
That's what I just did. Some went a little bit longer with an older computer and we just made it work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what we did when I started the court, so I can do that with these.
Yeah, 'cause
It's a little harder. You got them spread out all over the place. You got them over multiple funds and multiple things and.
In the
that's
courts,
it.
it was just, it was just a lot more.
Mhm.
This would probably be easier for me to do if you want me to do that with this. It was just, we always just did it at once because it was such a negligible amount compared to the courts, the main courts.
get it on a cycle.
Okay, I can come back and get you a 4-year plan number.
Equipment, is that equipment?
Yes.
66% reimbursable as well?
Yes.
To me, let's just do it.
That's why we just did.
$4,000.
Well, can we make this suggestion? Get it out of the way now, and then you start
Get it on a
getting a
replacement?
plan to do a replacement cycle, because future councils may not be able to do it all at once,
Yeah,
on all of them. To Jim's point, if it's that 66% reimbursable, that's really like a little over $4,000.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, if I do that now, then I would start doing replacements 3 years out. Well, it doesn't matter. We can start it now. We can start it 2 years from now.
Someone could find a use for one of the ones you're replacing,
Yeah.
it's still usable,
Right.
someone else in your office.
all right, let's do that. Give us
Go ahead and give you one and just start it.
mhm.
If we're gonna start it, we might as well start it now.
Sure.
Alright.
Okay.
Give me a minute.
So, hold on, Emily.
Yep.
Are we looking at these, people also?
Yeah, let's take a look at
So,
those.
assistant court reporter, 102, I have the level as 30, and when I say level, that's the level,
Internal.
the category level, that they're in. That's 37,467,
That's what I put.
and then the midpoint is 39,948.
That's what I have. 05, but we can,
Court reporter, lead court reporter, 38,590. One,
mhm,
okay.
81, yeah.
And then 42,498 as the,
Yeah, I'll get rid of my decimal point.
I think
Yeah.
a good goal to try to be there, reach that midpoint.
Well, right now, we're just trying to make sure that our data is right, so then when we're sitting here trying to figure out what we wanna do, we can quickly run the numbers.
That really wasn't even that big a difference. Are they all that close?
No,
no,
Okay.
Remember that lead's got the high external because of the additional responsibilities. That's why I went high on that. That's the one I went high on.
yeah, I've got it written
Okay.
in my note, but we're just trying to match up with that
Gotcha.
other spreadsheet.
the master commissioner, there's no level, it's the midpoint was 46,561.
Yeah,
The assistant court reporter is the same as the one above, which is 37,467 and 39,948.
I guess in my mind, what we're doing is establishing a base for each position, making sure that we're on the right.
mhm,
These aren't final numbers.
correct.
Right.
So
It's
we
like,
just-
kinda like the first pass through.
Yeah, we're just wanna make sure we have that range in place to,
Let me ask a question real quick, Bill, I think what you're stating, and then, because there's a difference between the base salary is for that job and what the person who sits in that position may be paid,
mhm,
correct?
Yeah, it's not going to be a perfect matchup.
correct.
There are going to be variations and
Yeah, I just wanted to say that out loud, so that's what I'm.
But, yeah, but overall, we're establishing a salary baseline for these positions. It kind of tells us where we are.
Yeah,
We may add all this up and find out we're still $1 million over budget. Hopefully, we don't think that's gonna happen, but we need to know where we are to start with. So then we can go back and make adjustments. That's the way I look at it.
I
To
agree.
Bill's point, could we try to attach the midpoint to these as we go through to see where we get when we're at the end?
Well, that's what we'll be able to do once we make sure that Matt and I have them in our columns, because we have a column for leveling and then a column for the midpoint. And so like that 4.5 number was the increases to the budget without any salaries.
Mhm.
And so then we'll be able to look at what's in the leveling, what's in the midpoint, we have another column where we're putting the final, yeah. And we'll be able to do that comparison and have a good idea. So bear with us while we get it entered, but then it'll make things easier on the back end for us, so.
Are you taking into consideration the built-in longevity on the salary?
Not at this point.
Okay, just,
No, we're just going straight off of what they gave us,
Just the
just to
mid
matchy
or
matchy.
whatever.
Yeah, just to get matchy matchy.
so we don't worry about that right now.
Not yet.
Okay.
Yes.
The salary study had really two purposes. One was the leveling function. Make sure we've got people who have been neglected and have dropped well below where they should be. And then the second function is the external measurement of where that we would like to see them get to. So I guess we're doing step one first, and then we will proceed with step two.
And just so I'm clear,
Yeah.
did you say that number, where that's not counting any increases in salaries?
That 4.5 was just the increases to county general without salaries.
Okay.
So, and remember what I said, we've got that 1 million I put in just as
Right.
slush for us to
Right.
whatever, and then we've got the sheriff's pension that's in two places, so.
I got you. I didn't realize.
So
that.
we're not like, I mean, it's important, we gotta find, we need to find the cuts, right? Like, help us help you, right? Cause we wanna get there for you guys, so. All right, so we're back on page 2. Okay. Is there anything else on here we had any concerns about?
16% increase in health insurance. I don't know if that was just,
This is the one, I believe Emily said that she had to adjust because the employee's insurance has changed, and then she added the 10% to it, which turns out to be that 16.
so that stays, okay.
Yeah,
Then we'll adjust equipment when she gets us some numbers.
Let me see if they have Microsoft.
okay,
I didn't check that since we were replacing all of them.
yeah. Okay,
And FICA and PERF will adjust at the end.
yeah, we'll have to make those adjustments once we figure out, what that final salary is going to be. What would that look like? Oh.
Sorry, pay attention.
Okay. All right, so we'll come back to page 2. And now we're communications. We've got Fred.
I've got a variety here.
Because he's gonna have his, like, the level in the midpoint, but then if we have to take into consideration the tenure off of his plan that he's been,
Way that this is set up in the budget currently is to put them just shy of the midpoint, and it also incorporates the $1,000 per position that is eligible next year.
for
That's
his,
the way this is set up currently.
yeah, for his scale.
So 101 I have is leveled at 43,800,
Correct,
and then a midpoint of 49,300.
correct.
And the next one is a little higher, it's 47,800, and then 53,300.
46. That's, so when they did this salary study, they did the $1,000 increments for the people that already had them. That's why it looks like that.
That's fine. So, but that's right though, 47,800 and
It is.
53,300.
But this budget request that you have in front of you puts them just shy of midpoint.
Yeah.
And then
I gotcha.
if they're eligible for the extra 1,000 in 2025, it's included in this budget request.
Gotcha.
Because it's by person, it's not, or it's by line, it's not by,
So what was so the folks who are on there at
So
50,000?
so number 106,
So the base salary is gonna be, according to this, gonna be 49,000.
on the
And you'll see
midpoint.
some that are 50, 51, 52, 53. But those are the ones that have 5, 10, 15, 20 years of service.
So the ones that start, yeah,
I have it, that's the way, I think I have it right, but I was gonna go through.
And there's one line that's out of whack, and I don't remember what it is without sitting here and looking at it, but it's because the person that we put into that line stepped out of a supervisor's position. And if you remember, I had money appropriated when that happened. And this is paying somebody a lot more than that original 42 to 49 thing. So there is one line that's out of whack.
Okay, just for the sake of this exercise that we're trying to do here, so 101, first one, where it says 24 budget of 42. So again, the level is 43,800, midpoint 49,300. The next one down, 106, 101 is 47,800 for the level and 53,300 for the midpoint. Any of those ones that are listed as 42,000 in that 2024 budget match the first one. That makes sense? So those are all 43,800. The 46 in 110, 101 says 46,000 from 2024 budget. That would be the same as the one before. That's the one above where it starts at 47,800 and on down until we get to 118. Which actually I just left. That is
It's the one that I
is
just
the
told,
higher.
it's the one I think that's the one I just told you about, but that's the
Yeah.
one that went from, no, that's not even it. Hold on one second. I have to find it.
119 is 44 it started at.
Two to
All of
one.
those ones, literally from,
It's 121. 121 is the one that was originally a base dispatcher that somebody with a lot more experience got put into when he stepped down as supervisor. And that's the one that goes from, well, it says 42 this year, it says 53 next year.
yeah, well, that's fine. We have it, I have it still leveled the same way.
Okay.
That roll.
Okay.
I
And then
don't know
the
if everybody
super-
wants to jot all that down or
The
not.
supervisor line that's in the county budget matches the statewide 911 supervisor budget. That's a larger number.
120. It's 42. 49, okay.
Then the three new positions are,
Oh, sorry, 1 second, Fred.
sorry,
The supervisor role, 123, 101.
yes,
has to
that's
be paid the same
that's-
as the,
as the 911 fund. Because that's the one supervisor that we switched from a dispatcher to a supervisor in the county budget.
I don't have that.
It was the same as last year.
Well, how do we want to put that in here then? Is there no level of just,
You can just put it needs to match
It
the
just needs to
supervisors
match,
in the
so-
911 budget.
we dictate what that is?
Yes,
So for that one, the leveling of that role in the table was 54,159, and the midpoint was 58,096.
I explained that to you yesterday, and that was the argument with this salary study, was that the supervisors that were compared from all the other counties were hourly employees, not exempt. So all of the other supervisors that are listed in that salary study are eligible for overtime and holiday pay and everything else.
Yeah.
And
That's
actually,
okay. I mean, again, we're not getting into that weed yet.
well, you are, because you're asking a question about why that's,
I'm just
Different
taking
than
the
the
table and
matrix.
putting it next to the name. That's it. We'll have to take those caveats into play.
yeah, the table's off.
Okay, so then the rest of those are all kind of alternating. You'll see the change officer in charge, that's,
Oh, I see,
The people that are in charge when the supervisors aren't there,
that's a thing you give as needed, correct?
they get paid, I don't remember the exact amount off the top of my head, but
You don't,
basically a
not everybody's
stipend.
gonna get it every week,
yes.
just somebody will.
Correct.
Then on down, to the three new spots.
136, 137, 138, 139.
Just put those in.
yeah, the 43,800, 49,300.
Okay, so that's it for the employees. I think we have all those tracked.
All right.
If we're literally just trying to get a baseline, and then, so, anyway.
I understand that you're putting the chart in there, but I'll reiterate what I said yesterday, because I may not get up and speak again, because I'm trying to turn over a new leaf this year.
Okay.
That's why I'm hanging out in the hallway. My blood pressure stays way down. It's really good, and I'm only gonna argue for my department, but you can't put them just at the midpoint, because it's not competitive, and I'm already theoretically gonna lose people, and I can't hire people, so that's why we need to focus closer to the midpoint. So,
We hear you.
Right,
I know.
question on your health insurance, 21% increase, is that a study or just a guess?
no, so what I did again with the health insurance is I figured the 2024 cost, adding 3 people, because I put 3 new people in the budget. So I came up with a number, and I don't remember what it was, because I don't have it written down, and then I added 10% on top of that,
Okay, you did 10%?
for net, yes.
And did you assume, what, a family plan for the 3 new employees?
I literally did 10% on top of 3 new positions and the ones that I currently have, because
Okay.
last year we were given the health insurance number, and this was a best guess, and they had it, they figured it out.
10% sounds right. Very good.
I gave you what I think is the worst case scenario.
I don't see anything else.
So if you take health insurance, perf, overtime, part-time, so there's an additional 43,800 in, I'll just call it miscellaneous expenses, utilities, operating supplies, repairs,
Software.
dues,
Yeah.
chairs, you mentioned equipment.
Yep.
So,
So my overall budget increase minus personnel
Right.
is under 50 grand. Right? So, because we try really hard to keep it as close as we can to, like I have control over the software costs. I don't even know what the renewal rates are. That's a guess that I put in the budget, because we don't get them till like November.
Right.
I actually think I undershot a little bit last year, for this year.
Yeah.
But I'll find the money somewhere to offset that.
Yep.
But the overall budget increase is 43,000 something dollars minus the personnel costs, which I think for a public safety agency with 36 people is pretty good.
But looking at today, are there any of the non-personnel costs that could be adjusted, or are you comfortable with all of them?
No, because like I said, the big one, the one that goes from 146,000 to 151,000, which is 361 towards the bottom of the page,
Right?
that's a contract with Motorola. And
Okay.
again, that's always a guess, because we don't ever pay the Motorola bill till December, which is why there's so much money still left in there. And anything, as I say every year, anything that we don't spend in our budget goes back to you anyway.
Right, you're really good about that.
So-
Now, to go back to Bill's point about health insurance, did you also do the same thing with uniforms? Did you figure in those new employees for you?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, these are for replacement uniforms and for new people.
okay,
I'm comfortable with 5,000 a year, because we're not doing pants and shoes and all that other stuff. We're
Yeah,
literally only
sure.
doing shirts and
Okay.
sweatshirts and stuff like that.
May I ask,
Yeah.
was the $1,000 decrease we talked about yesterday, is that locked
That's
in?
you're fine with that. That's line number 221. You can change that to 6,000 instead of
I
7,000.
had, but I didn't wanna keep
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
oh, I hadn't. done
I already
that
wrote it
either.
in my book, so
What line, as you said, it was,
It was line
221.
21. We
Okay.
reduced it $1,000 to 6,000.
okay, I'll take 1,000.
Supplies?
Yeah,
Operating supplies, yeah.
Okay. All right, I think I'm pretty good with this, or anyone else have any? Ryan, you got any more pennies you wanna find?
No, ma'am, I'm good.
All right,
do you want to do the 911 thing too at the same time, since I'm already up here?
yeah, we can go ahead, we'll hop over to your 911, I guess
Yeah.
that's fine, let's do that.
That way you don't have, that way I can keep
Then
my
you can-
promise and not get up again.
You can keep your blood pressure down and
What page is it?
It's like 78, I think. On
65.
in my book, it's 78,
60,
but
65.
I mean, we get to that cut again when we come up around to it, Fred?
oh no, oh no.
Page 65, we're doing it 911 real quick.
While you're finding it, I will say this, because I thought I was gonna get asked today, and I may still get asked in the future. I got asked last year what was more important to me, new positions or paying the current people that I have. If you need to cut anything from my budget, I would much rather you cut a couple of the new positions and at least leave me one and give the people the raises that I requested. Okay? If it comes down to that, that would be my preference. I still want to try to do 1 or 2 positions a year because we need 8. But if it comes down to paying the people what I put in here, then take a couple of those positions away and just give me one. Okay? Because I need to take care of the people that I have so that they continue to take care of everybody else.
Just for the record, Fred, all your supervisors are salary, they don't get overtime, they
That's
don't get
correct.
holiday pay, all
That
those
is
things, correct?
Which is why there's a disparity in what the salary study says and what we are paying. That's the issue.
Fred, I have a question. How did you figure your FICA on this?
Best guess.
Best guess.
Yeah, I look every year, and if I increase the salaries, I just increase it. The good thing about the 911 budget is that and Tanya corrected me, I think last year, we can overshoot that. It doesn't matter because whatever we don't spend just stays in the fund. So, because I didn't know what the percentages was until she gave them yesterday. Usually in years past, they figure out all the FICA and PERF for every account, which is what happened last year. So I put in an estimate, and they fine tune it based on the number of employees and what we're paying them.
Sure, just, if it was more accurate, you might be able to use those funds for something else in that 911 budget.
Let's find out.
Yeah, theoretically, but it would just, in the end, it's just gonna decrease what my budget request is, because that money never actually comes out of there. It just stays in, and we just pay the bills that come out of there. That's why this is always budgeted at more than we take in, because we never actually spend it. So I don't have to come and ask you for money to do stuff like we do in county general. That's how it's set up.
Because then I'm gonna go back and ask on the other account if that number is accurate. 'Cause
It's not. I think I said that yesterday.
Okay.
It's my guess as to, the health insurance is the 10%, right? But FICA and PERF, I didn't know the percentages till yesterday. So they're probably a little off, and that got corrected at the budget time last year for every single department.
Yeah.
They sat down and figured out based on the salaries that we were paying.
Sure, but that was figured out after we went through the first 2 days. I'm trying to get these numbers accurate for the first 2 days. That's why I asked the
I
question.
get it.
So, okay, so if I am looking at what he requested, it would make the FICA 37,867, well, 868, we'll round up, and the PERF 55,440.
And you could do that in the other budget, Eugene, just to answer your question. You could go back to the page 3. You could do the same thing, right? Based on the salaries that I put in there, you can figure out what FICA and PERF
I'm
are.
gonna get rid of it.
The difference with PERF, and somebody in the room can correct me if I'm wrong, the other thing that goes into PERF is overtime. Because it's so our budgets are a little bit different. You actually should tend to overshoot those because there's $100,000 worth of overtime that, or in this case, probably this year, there's 130,000. PERF gets paid on that too. So it's PERF and FICA, and it's not apples to apples to a lot of other departments that are gonna stand up here and you can figure accurate numbers for. Like I could theoretically overshoot those every year and probably still barely break even. So that's, I think, a big difference from us or EMS or the sheriff's department or whoever else, because FICA and PERF are also figured on that overtime money. Yeah, well, we don't have longevity. We gave that up.
Hey, Fred, what's your equipment number off at the bottom of your balance versus your budget?
Which number?
The very bottom one, the 536, isn't that where you pay your, bill at the end of the year?
Oh, in this line?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
It says you only budgeted 10 grand for last year, but it says you have almost $73,000 in there. Spent.
I think we just moved money into equipment though, I think.
Anybody remember that?
I don't remember. I'll have to go back and look at my transfers, but I think we did appropriate additional money.
You asked for the same amount this year.
It's a placeholder. It's just like contractual services. It's a placeholder. But we did, like last year, we had to put a bunch into PSAP equipment to pay for the locution stuff. So, I don't know.
I'm just curious.
Also, Eugene, to your point, the health insurance line, we could have adjusted that in this budget last year too. We didn't because it didn't have an impact on anything. They just left it alone.
Yeah, so looking at what you requested for salaries in your communication center, FICA would be 126,837, and the perp would be 185,696. So depending on where we end up on these salaries, there'll be we can do a reduction there.
Leave a buffer in there for overtime.
Right,
Yeah.
right, but I mean, that's a pretty big, because you had like perf, let's say we do 186,000, you put 250 in, I mean, we could drop that down to 210 and probably,
Correct.
okay,
Correct,
so
correct.
we'll come back and,
Again, these are guesstimates when we do the budget because we
Right.
never know.
right, and this is also going off the fact we do exactly what you asked for with your salaries for all your employees, so there's wiggle room there too, but just,
Well, in your mind, not in mine.
exactly my mind. We're trying to get you all raises.
I know,
Fred.
but like I said, you know, and everybody hates to hear this, but there are some departments that
We know.
struggle to attract and retain people that we don't want to lose because of the exact reasons that have been set up here.
Well,
It's
that's
really
why-
hard for us to train people. And to lose a trained person costs us a lot of money.
Absolutely. And time, lost time. So, I mean, that's why Matt and Ryan both are always asking about, what are your retention rates or like how many people have you lost? How many,
They say it's the biggest expense.
Yeah.
Retraining.
It is. It costs us a lot of money to train new people.
Okay. All right, I'm pretty good with that. We good, ready to go? Thank you.
What's the bottom line?
No, I don't have a bottom line. We really haven't done it. The only thing that changed that you want to make sure you change in your budget book, I don't know if everyone was listening, was on page 4, line 221.
Okay.
That 1,000.
That dropping that 7,000 to 6,000. So make sure you get your book.
What, 7 to 6, yes.
Yeah, I think you were down there when we were talking that.
The last thing that I'll say about the positions, I just want to remind everybody that we do need 8 positions total in order to meet national standards today's date. And eventually we're going to get into a position that if we don't start adding people, and somebody gets hurt, it's not going to be good
Yeah.
because we don't have the staff that we need. So,
All right, thank you, Fred.
So
Thank you,
on
Brett.
on state 1911, there's another 28 in additional expense increase outside of employees.
Yeah.
So combine that with the other one and.
He's got a pretty good balance. I mean, he's trying to save it. He told us yesterday, Ryan, I don't know if you heard, but he's trying to work on getting that balance up for some bigger capital expenses that are coming in the pipeline, so.
He's got radios, what, 3 years, 5?
within 5 years.
Yeah, within 5. And that's gonna be,
Because when I come to the council and ask for $4.5 million, it'd be nice if I had $1 million or $2 million in the bank, right?
All right, thank you.
thank you, Fred.
All right, Emily, what do you got for
So
us?
on the PCs for 40 court, I just double checked, they all have Office 2019, so I'd have to update all the Office this coming year, which is what I have to do in all the courts.
Okay.
So if I do a replacement plan, I could do 2 PCs, but I have to update all the Office.
Okay,
So it'd be 4660 for the year 1. Year 2, 3, 4 would be only 2 computers each year, which is usually about 2,800. But this year's gonna be more expensive because we gotta get them upgraded to the correct office.
all right, so
So I would reduce it to 4660.
Okay, so the line item, 536,
Yes,
give me that number,
yes.
4660.
Yes.
And the blue.
Mhm. Yeah, cause if I do it, I can copy it.
Right.
Number in there, and then when we want to.
Saved a little over $6,000 right there.
I'm not in favor of that, but I guess I'm the only one, right?
Well, I kinda agree with you. I would say let's do it and then start to plan, but
That's a couple raises.
whatever. Yeah, we may need that $4,000 or $6,000.
Again, we're getting
I
66%
can start the
back.
plan this year, I can start it next year, why not just start it now?
Yeah. It's just good practice anyway to be on a rotation, right? And then if there's a issue with like,
I don't disagree with that.
if we ever have another 2020 where you can't get everything back ordered and everything else, you've got a little bit of a
I didn't, yeah, I
plan
didn't-
there, so, okay.
Jim wants to do it now. He's still
I know
got
he
AOL.
does.
He's jealous.
I think you gotta get the computer.
I
while the
hear you,
money-
Jim.
Serious.
While the money may not be
True
there
story.
next year.
I think they could probably find.
Doesn't Ron have AOL or something? I don't know.
All right, so next up, we're page 5, it's the clerk.
I do have the new requested amount if you want that
For what?
for Title 40 with that reduction.
Oh, okay, refresh.
You're talking about the total?
Yes.
What is
Okay.
it?
It is 303,851. A
I don't afford it. 303,851.
6,215 adjustment.
Thank you.
So what was that number again?
303,851. Forty-four, not the 40 families.
What number like that? That's trying to give me like
Can we get the,
119.
once we get the money back or something? Plant.
Oh, it's because. That's why.
No, they're doing
I filtered it for,
it. You
employees.
can start the replacement process.
What's the number again? 303,851.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's
we
good.
on the,
Just a second.
clerk?
Oh, we're on the clerk,
Same
yep,
clerk?
page 5.
So I struggled with this leveling, and under identifying who was who, based on the pivots primarily and finding them all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't even try to match these up.
Sorry about the first one,
All the clerk's employees.
for the clerk's employee.
Yeah, trying to match them up to,
Clerk, midpoint was 62,503.
Well, for a thought exercise, our max levy increase is 4%. I think the current clerk salary is the same for several of the elected employees.
All of them.
I increased it by 4%.
What'd you
Again, it's a thought exercise, that would make
all
it,
the elected officials.
yeah, what'd you
would
get
make
with
it
that?
58,381. And then the chief deputy, I took the 80% of that.
80%.
That would make that 46,705. I'm not committed to that, but I was just trying to get a number in my mind that we might look at.
I think that's a great formula, what you did. I'd be fine with that. Because that's something we can apply across the board to each department.
Now, okay,
Does that have any effect on that salary exempt status? and
yeah,
all
that's
that stuff?
exactly what I was getting ready to go,
Delve into,
yeah, go down that rabbit hole. Because, so the study had all the chief deputies as excluded because they're an appointed position by the elected.
Midpoint goes one.
They,
but be excluded, they have to be up to a certain minimum level.
well, no,
they're
So-
different, they vary for each one.
Yeah, they varied, all the chief deputies have varying 2024 salaries. And then if you did, one of the options for the pay was 85% of the elected official, the other option was 80%. But that number, even at the 85%, that was getting,
No, that's a little bit off.
okay,
The 85% of the elected officials' 2024 salary was option one.
yeah,
Was the internal pay leveling, basically, is what they put. Then there's the external midpoint salary option, and then there's the 80% of the elected officials' external average salary.
right.
um, Which again, I think,
How's it external if it's an elected official?
Because other counties do different pay,
it's the external midpoint.
yeah, so
Okay.
like, this chief,
I thought it was private sector external,
No.
so it's just government. So what's the formula that makes them tax or exempt like that? Is it just the fact that they're in an appointed position?
makes them excluded,
Yeah, so is it just the fact that they're
yes,
appointed?
is how I took it for the chief deputies. Bill?
Yeah, it's, by definition, they are not covered by the Fair Labor Standards Act. That there is Matt read it in our last meeting, or
Less in there.
last work session. The definition, if you read that definition, it would not include chief deputies. They're just not covered by the act at all. We can't make them covered, or we can't take them out of the act, that's by definition. If we want to go 85%, the chief deputy salaries would be 49,624.
That solved the problem?
Well, it creates an issue, right? Because, well, I mean, it depends on what we decide to do with the job descriptions, because right now they're excluded. So that means they don't get any opportunity for overtime.
Bill, would you repeat that number? Please, they're just not covered by the act at all.
Yeah.
Take the Fair Labor Standards Act out of your mind.
For the chief deputies.
For the chief deputies, they fall outside. If we wanna pay them overtime, we can pay them overtime. If we wanna pay them this salary, we can pay them this salary.
They just can't do anything if you don't. They don't have the protections of that act.
Okay. But we have all the flexibility.
For the chief deputy.
Right there.
And you asked about what's the 85% number?
Yeah, 49,684, is that correct? 24. Yeah. 49,624.
Now, if we do that, we're gonna have to cut that somewhere else, because that's over what's advertised.
Well, this is in county general,
I had it downstairs and I didn't bring it.
and so we had that,
Fall out somewhere else.
I had all that wiggle room in our council
Okay,
budget,
so
so
it don't necessarily have to be on this page.
They would,
they would
the job
If it
description.
come out of
I'm all right.
What I had the clerk at 58,381, so it would cover it.
Okay, so clerk 58,381 is what you got, and then
I can pretty much tell by this.
tell me the chief deputy one more time for 85%.
49,624.
Yeah.
I'm all right with that.
Bill, I don't know that the excluded was as crystal clear as that. I know we had the conversation around the exempt
Hang with us, Rick.
versus
Okay.
non-exempt, and kind of that classification and what falls under that title.
He gets you one of those $600 chairs I've been hearing about.
Hey, I could use one.
But even in the FLSA website, the, excluded, it was really hard to find anything that mentions excluded. And because it's an appointed position of an elected official, I would assume that there must be some precedent that Wagner Shealy used to say that it's excluded. But I couldn't find specific language necessarily.
So,
Maybe I-
section 553.11, exclusion, this is from the federal regulations. Exclusion for elected officials and their appointees. Subsection 3E2C provides an exclusion from the act's coverage for officials elected by the voters of their jurisdictions Also excluded under this provision are personal staff members and officials in policymaking positions who are selected or appointed by the elected public official and certain advisors to such officials. There's more information in here talking about the staff members, which is something I don't know that we've discussed, but those would be like personal assistants to those policymaking or to the elected official. But the policy-making appointees of those elected officials, I think, are pretty clearly excluded. Now, if you don't think that's what those appointees, if you don't think the appointees meet that definition, that's a different argument, but I think in most cases, the deputies appointed by the elected officials would be considered policy-making positions and would therefore be excluded from the act.
Okay. Because if that is the case, then, that's, there's obviously gonna be some pushback with that.
I think you look at it another way, but for that individual being elected, would that person hold the deputy position? It's a different question as to whether or not they would maybe have another position in that office, but would they have that chief deputy position, but for that individual being elected? And if the answer is very clearly no, then I think that answers your question, that they're excluded from the act. The difference would be, I guess, to use the prosecutor's office as an example, you may be a deputy prosecutor, a new prosecutor gets elected, you get elevated to chief deputy, a new prosecutor gets elected, you don't get fired, but you get reduced back down to regular, deputy prosecutor, and somebody else gets elevated. It's, so most of these positions, I think, they would be considered deputies who are in policy-making positions that are, political appointees, I guess is another way to put it.
We'll talk specifically, just at least based on the chart, with auditor, assessor, clerk, recorder, surveyor, treasurer, and coroners. The sheriff's chief deputy fell out of that. The head matron of the jail fell out of that. Prosecutors, high tech was out of that. The health officer was outside of that, and the magistrate for juvenile and master commissioner of the courts were in a separate section that didn't show this kind of 80%, 85% of the elected official's salary. It just has blatant midpoints and highs and lows. Deputy coroners was also different.
So those ones that you mentioned, once we set the baseline for the official and chief deputy, can we do that same number across the board for that grouping of elected officials and chief deputies, like you said, the clerk, the treasurer, the auditor, those ones?
Yeah, I mean, what Bill was saying is you take what their 2024 is right now for those elected officials, right? Times it by 4. And then those chief deputies would be, did you say 80 or 85%, Bill? 80?
I'm, after Matt's comments, I moved it to 85.
Okay.
No, I'm fine with that, but what I'm saying, is that gonna be interchangeable across those 5 offices?
Well, what Ed pointed out earlier was the fact that we are one of only, there's 3, 6, 9, 12 counties listed here, and only Monroe County, really true across the board, but pays our elected officials the exact same amount.
Yeah, well, we're also the only county that does the 32.5-hour work week. Still doing that.
That's a different argument. So and even Monroe, the surveyor and commissioners and everybody, there's differences there. So, I mean, I gotta be honest, I don't agree with doing a leveling of that nature, that we're paying the clerk and the auditor necessarily the same amount. Because then if you go to the average salaries, I mean, there's adjustments to be made, potentially, because where the auditor's average salary, even if this is based on a year-old data, is 66,000, the assessors and clerks are roughly around 62 and change, depending. the coroner average is only 33 grand.
Well, the coroner's not included in that group.
Yeah,
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, they are.
Recorder's at 59,
But then-
surveyor's at 56, 62 at the treasurer, 41 commissioners, and council's about
But our
15.
coroner was over what that salary study suggested.
It is, I know. I'm just telling you that the average salary
average
variation
of all these, what, 12 counties?
fluctuates versus a straight across the board same, everybody makes the same except for the sheriff kind of scenario. Pointing that out.
Yeah,
but I mean,
Ryan, I feel like you were on council when we did this. But we balanced everyone out
Hmm?
on purpose. We balanced all the elected officials out and then balanced all of the chief deputies out. So it was even across all the different offices.
You're right. That's what I'm arguing to continue doing. Whatever baseline number we decided on this one, continue that for those group of people.
Yeah,
Now, obviously, I don't think the coroner falls under that, and, as far as I know, that's probably the only one. I'm sure some people would argue, Rick would probably argue with you out of all of them. I'm sure there's different levels of work and
Yeah.
effort put forth, but without ever stepping foot in the office, I've always been under the illusion that the clerk is the one who has really the most legwork to make up when they.
I knew I
when they
liked
work.
this
Not
guy.
to undermine what, not to undermine anybody's efforts and what they do, but I'm
He's a
sure they all
hell of a
do
nice
different,
guy, isn't he?
varying degrees of workload.
yeah,
But
That is true, guys. I mean, you need to take a look at each office separately. And I want to speak to something that Bill just said, and I really am tickled to death that you're using the salary study, because we do at some point have to balance up. But I don't think you can use a salary study for everybody and exclude the elected officials.
mhm,
Since I'm the guy that's termed out and gonna be leaving, I'm speaking for the ones that are still gonna be around here, and I think you need to step them up along with the salary suggestions, just like everybody else.
yeah, I think if I were you were around, I feel like,
Well, you talk about the chief deputies. Jane was the one, if you
Jane pushed
remember,
that.
that made the ordinance that raised the chief deputies
Yeah.
for the constitutional offices.
that was
She
her
didn't raise
main
every
focus
chief deputy.
that year.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was her last year on council.
yeah,
And, there is a difference. I
yeah,
don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but different offices do different amounts of stuff.
yeah.
Okay, with that being said, then,
Let's go back to the rest of the clerk's
what
budget.
is that saying though? What does the study say? Is it saying that, Rick brought up a good point.
Oh, here's the,
It's saying
it's
that
on
the
this
clerk's
page.
salary average is 62.5 across all those 10 counties.
62,502 is what the average is on the salary study. Now, I will say, I'm a big fan of looking at what Vigo does, because they are very similar in size, and they're also a university town. And they're at 68.
Gosh,
Rick
I
would
like you
gladly
guys
take
today.
68. 68,666. So, I mean,
We're in the money.
I remember when I first started, they were at 50, I think.
Yeah.
Everybody's at 50.
Yeah, they were.
yeah,
Sound like Quaken Kombucha up there.
because for a lot of years, the elected
Back when
official,
I was commissioner.
for a lot of years, the elected officials, we saw Marta do it too. We're willing to not take increases and such just so that
Tried,
employees. could get-
during the hard times, that happened. Huh?
Yeah, and long time. So, I mean, I know, like, I didn't put an increase in for us. Sorry, guys, but like,
Don't be.
but according to this, we're paid more than the average. So,
We've only done it once in 4 years.
yeah, something like that.
I think that's only happened one time. And that was like $700.
Well, because one time we did it, and then we got in a pickle, and we actually pulled
Back.
it back. We took it back. We removed our own salary increases. So, well, we'll tackle these here in a bit, but I think for us, I mean, Matt and I are trying to match up the salaries on the salary study to your employees. I think we just want to make sure
I think you guys have got pretty much our descriptions all, we've met, and I think our descriptions are all right. When I talk about my staff, and as you're looking at hopefully each individual, remember, we're not trying to even keep up with other counties. We're trying to
Right.
keep up within this building, and we were some of the lowest paid people in the building. So remember, my staff, get us up, get us equal. That's all I'm asking for.
I think in general, that's what you put in your budget.
Yeah.
We're just-
Yeah, you
we're
can
just
see the numbers, there's not a
leveling
lot of numbers. The ones, you know, we really had to work on that one set of offices, the filing offices, and, you know, so that you'll see that I asked for more there. But the other girls, I didn't, you know, we didn't go crazy. We tried to live within the parameters. I'd like to have a little bit more if you got it. You guys know what you got, and like I said, you know, let's look at level. Let's look at getting us on the same basis as
The one,
the courts. We do, you know, when you look at what the courts don't do anything without us. I mean, the paperwork, the filing, the
I
collections.
consider you part of public safety,
Yeah.
right? Like the
Right.
clerk's office portion of your job. I consider public safety in my head.
I'll be honest, I don't know how anybody lives on these numbers, really.
We got, at least 2 girls that, are getting benefits. They're working full-time job and getting benefits, and that's sad. That is sad.
we did have a discussion in the last work session around the first deputy juvenile court, which was
We
initially.
changed the description on that in our last meeting,
Yep,
Matt,
but
and
we didn't move that. We were gonna move it to Pat.
to Pet or Pat or whatever. Yeah, I can't keep up with your acronyms, but
Because you budgeted for her, or that person, excuse me, 43,700, right?
yes, that's what we asked for.
Okay, so this is what did we change that title to?
What was the new title?
Oh, gosh, Matt, can you help me with that?
I'll look it up here.
We,
I got him here.
in that last meeting we had, we discussed that pretty heavy, but I didn't write it
Like
down, I'm
lead?
sorry.
Deputy?
Training, didn't that, because she does so much of the
First
training. and-
deputy courts,
No.
first deputy juvenile courts,
Well, she works juvenile, she, you know, she does,
supervising deputy clerk.
there you go, that's it. That rings a bell.
So wouldn't it make more sense if you just do deputy clerk supervisor?
I'm sure she don't care what you call her.
27.
120.
Oh, she come up with a little money.
Deputy clerk supervisor?
While they're doing that, your equipment, 15 new computers.
That was, you know, as I told you yesterday, that popped up right at the last minute. We were told by IT that several of our computers in the clerk side would not accept, what is it, 12 that comes out next, Windows 11. Anyway, we've used them up to their capacity, so we won't be able to take the next update, so we need to replace them.
And that's out of how many?
I'll bet we got 45 computers total. So, you know, most of our oldest stuff is like 19, because we keep a record, and Jen actually has, we've been replacing 4 or 5 a year for the last 4 or 5 years and trying to stay ahead of this, but this time we just got caught. Seems like in my office, that's all we do is buy computers. It's always when, you know, I was just here getting money for a couple scanners last week, so,
Is that what that is on the bottom of the computers?
yeah,
Equipment.
that equipment. And, you know, we'd used that kind of $7,500, $8,000 figure for the last couple of years, and we would replace all of that. Plus, the computers got more expensive too.
Yeah.
So it looks like on some of these, you went with like the leveling and some of them with the midpoint number?
I didn't think I did on the deputies. I think that on the deputies with specific jobs, I think I did.
Okay.
But on the deputy clerks, which would be our lower pay level, I don't think I was up to that. I didn't think I went quite to that.
No, those were at the
Those actually need to come up a little bit more than that, truthfully.
Hey, Rick, is this, what's transportation?
We can't, between the credit card and the way we used to pay gas for the girls to go to school, we had to change that to transportation. So that is if I send two of the girls to school and then they need gasoline or something like that, that's what that's gonna be used out of.
Ryan,
Yes, ma'am.
Elizabeth gave you each one of these, at lunchtime. This will give you your descriptions for any line you're in question about as to what it's for.
Oh, good, thank you.
Got the
I'm
number,
still not up with them,
which is
Ryan. I
the
can't
code.
keep up with what we,
You
I
don't
forgot
pay
bank
attention
fees
to
last
the
night.
code. That means nothing to anyone here.
My other,
But the
Sorry.
county code's on there and the descriptions on there.
thank you, Elizabeth. My other question, we don't have an election next year. I know a lot of the times, the different years of elections, you'll have an increase in there or whatever. I don't see any decrease for nothing for not having an election. Is
well,
it-
that's
that
on the
be out of a
142
different-
budget. That's not in.
That's
this
what I was
budget.
gonna ask, that in a different one?
We get to that budget, you'll see some huge cuts.
That
in
makes
there.
sense. That's what I was looking for.
We still got contractual agreements that we have to follow.
Right.
And
But
then, of
like
course, we can
poll
still,
workers and
yeah,
stuff.
not poll workers, but with Microsoft and No Inc. as to the, their upkeep of our machinery and programming of our machinery, updating the machinery, even in an off election year, they still have to do that.
Sure.
And then we still have our payments for our new voting machines that we just, so there is some money in that budget, but not near what it would be if we had an election.
Page 20, Brian,
Hey, what?
page 20.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Yeah, big difference.
And I told them too, on next year, my election staff will be working on a voter list maintenance program to where we're going to actually touch every voter in Delaware County and eliminate the non-voters and the non-residents. We're gonna kind of follow a little bit of Texas pattern from this year, and clean up our voter registration rolls.
I love that. Well, that can help with, I had a couple people that contacted me this year after election that went to go vote and found out that they weren't on the poll rolls
Mhm.
because they haven't voted in a couple years. So
Right.
I'm sure that when you're doing those hands-on.
Now, a lot of times if you
visits,
don't vote, you
educate some of
fall
those
inactive, but you can still vote as an inactive voter. We don't kick you off, we don't kick anybody off, but we don't take you off the rolls unless you're canceled, and that's when you miss 2 presidential elections in a row, everything in between.
I'm glad to see what you're talking about going around and making sure.
We show
Everybody-
77,000 voters, I think, and we don't have anywhere near that. That affects our percentages, when I come to you after an election and say, oh, we only voted 18%. Well, that's really not true, because we don't really have 77,000 voters, so we're gonna work on that.
All right. Do we have anything else outside of salaries with the clerk?
Yeah. So combined with the two funds, you're actually gonna be asking for less money,
Yeah,
two
and
together.
And as we said here, I'm surprised you haven't picked it up yet. In office supplies, my first deputy's cheap. She is tight. And as you can see, we haven't used much money there, and we're not gonna use, that big amount going out. So there will be money coming back to you on that. As you can see, I've used very little part-time
Part-time.
money. We try, to only use that when we need to. So, when you get down to the brass tacks, we can talk about, cutting back both of those a little bit for next year. I want supplies on the clerk side for next year, because we're redoing the whole court filing system. You weren't here yesterday, but I told them for the first time, it's gotta be in 25 years. We have all the court files under one roof. We have them out at the clerk's office at the Justice Center. Now, we're still in kind of disarray. We have to search a lot of times for records. So next year's plan with part-time help and with our supplies is to buy new boxes, new files, so that we can get all the court files that are under one roof in perfect order. And of course, we're continually scanning and trying to digitize as much as we can, but, we've got court records back to forever. And
And we had them in storage unit someplace, didn't we?
yeah, we did. We had them in the basement of the health department and in
I brought that
Accutex
up last
basement
year's
when,
budget.
before they did it, yeah.
That's
Now-
why we're paying them.
Now I got a camper trailer out there, Matt calls it.
Well, you brought up something, I'm glad you mentioned that. Last year during the budget, we asked everybody, how much are you giving back this year?
Yeah.
We haven't really done much of that this year. That's probably a good rule of thumb. If you guys are up there, you got money to give it back, probably a good idea to mention it. It may help, what we're figuring, so
Yeah.
glad you
Yeah,
brought
we
that
don't
up.
waste money. We're glad to give it back and we don't, we don't live by spend it or lose it because I'm not afraid to ask for it if we need it. We'll spend it if we need it.
Good deal.
Or come and ask for money for a printer or a scanner.
Of course, Ryan argues with me every time I come for money.
We don't need to do an election.
He's
So-
dealing with my wife.
Well, let's just take a peek at, while Rick's up there, his election board fund on page 20. Yeah, I don't think there was a whole lot. Is your budget reduced significantly since
Yep.
it's not an election year?
237,000.
Since you plan on, working on the voter rolls, your postage, is it, it's enough on this,
Is the what?
the postage, since you plan on having to mail out twice?
That's when I spend the commissioner's money. That's in their budget. We're burning them up right now. We did, 3 precinct changes, voting location changes and adjustments, and we had to mail out 20,000 cards.
Wow. What's your office supplies go so low for?
We just don't waste stuff.
I mean, it's a good problem to have, but that's $20,000.
Rick, I have a question.
Yes,
The election board members,
yes.
do they still get paid?
Yes, the
next
election
year?
board still meets in the off years, and especially next year when, as we start trying to remove some voters, a lot of that stuff takes a vote of the election board to be able to do that.
Thank you.
And then what kind of conferences and trainings do you have?
There's an election school once a year in December that the election room goes to. Clerks have a spring school and a fall school, and then voter registration has a school. I don't attend them all. I'm not a big attender, but I do try to send staff to the important ones.
All right, I feel pretty good about that one. Anyone else have questions for that budget? No? All right.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Auditor.
Did have to step out,
Yeah.
and he asked if we
Gonna skip over him? Yeah,
wanted to share.
that's fine. Treasurer, Brad.
Good afternoon,
Afternoon.
almost evening, I guess, but not quite.
You say that now.
Huh?
We're not done with you, you say that now.
That's fine. I have nothing to do until I come back in at 8:30 tomorrow, except sleep, but other than that, that's all we need. All right.
Work on your,
Professional services, Brad, what's that?
Okay, so, I explained that yesterday. Basically what, and I'm fine with looking at, numbers. It looks like the commissioner's still, I think it's still in their budget, so if it wants to be taken, the 25,000 out, that's fine. It is for, attorney fees for the tax sale, so if we don't have that, we don't have an attorney for the tax sale, therefore we don't have a tax sale, and then the general fund suffers, so, because every bit of the money that we get, other than the fees, goes back into the general fund from a tax sale.
You're talking about just the 25, right?
25, 10 of it is, bank fees.
All right.
And, we just actually met with Star Bank this morning. And it depends on the investments and what kind of money is in there is what our fees are. We're looking at, because I think as of, I think we had about 7,000 in there, but we're gonna probably eat up probably 4 or maybe even possibly 5,000 of that for the fall tax collection. So that big chunk is taken out during April and also during October. And then the rest of the year, that money is, you know, depending on if we have enough balance in there, they don't charge us any, it offsets it, so that's a good thing. Obviously, if we don't collect as much taxes, and we don't have a big enough balance, then they're gonna charge fees. So that varies, but, I think it was 15,000 a couple years ago. We've cut it down to 10. Feeling pretty confident that 10 will be enough, for next year. So that would take care of professional services.
Why did you say you thought it was in the commissioner budget?
It used to be. Ed and I had that conversation. It was in there. But we were thinking just to make it cleaner, because that way then it could be for tax, because it is for tax sale.
Right.
With the treasurer's tax sale, that it would just clean that up a little bit, but, obvious, you know, if we don't wanna make it an additional 25,000 if the commissioners aren't pulling it.
Well, I was
and it doesn't
watching
look
that
like they are.
yesterday, and I think it was Jim that was asking, why are we moving it? It was already in there, and I will,
Mhm.
obviously I couldn't comment, but I was thinking, if we're leaving it in here, we gotta remember to pull it out of the commissioner.
Right.
Oh, that was that 25K.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so what I'm
and so-
asking now is, what do you guys think we should do? Should we,
I think it's an attorney for the tax sale that you're running.
Right.
You should have the money.
Okay. I mean, that's,
do we
like I
gotta
say,
move
it's
the
up to
poll?
you guys. I mean,
I'll pull money out.
as long as they, I mean, if they would, you know, leave it in here, then pull it there, or vice versa, that's fine, as long as we have money to pay for an attorney.
I'm fine with it, I just wanna make sure it's
That's
not
all we need.
a duplicate.
Yeah, no,
Which is
I don't
both
need,
of them.
yeah, that's exactly,
Right now, you've got tax sale in October,
yes.
all the big
Yeah.
guys. How much do you gross out of a tax sale generally, ballpark?
Last year we had ours in September, and I think one person was over $1 million, bought over $1 million. I'm gonna,
Do they live in this?
Were they out of?
couple million, actually not, local.
But you have
Or
to,
Black
you have to
Rock.
hold that then, because it's property
Yes,
can be
we have to,
redeemed.
that's for a year, because they have a year to redeem it, and then it goes, but yeah.
And then that doesn't count in any way, even though it's property tax money, in essence, it doesn't count against our max levy in any way, does it?
I don't believe so, no. It does not.
It would have when it was originally due,
But if it's,
but
if
if the
it's
people
through a
don't
tax
pay
sale, it
it,
doesn't,
you know what I mean?
it's free money.
Mhm.
So
It's
to speak.
too late after the fact kind of thing.
Right.
So this year, did we include anything in our miscellaneous revenue for tax sale proceeds from last year?
I did not from my revenue.
So we did account for like tax sale surplus.
Surplus.
Yeah,
We've accounted for, 120 next year.
I have a question for you, Brad. Do you guys have any mechanism in place to keep people who buy these properties at tax sales from buying something that's been like condemned? Like, I have an example. I had a woman called me 2 weeks ago, all a mess, upset. She'd bought this house, she said, at a tax sale, and then she got a mess or something in the mail from the building commissioner's office. She went to a hearing and they condemned it and ordered it destroyed. She had no clue when she bought it at the tax sale. Is there anything in place to prevent
there's-
unsuspecting people from,
you need to go inspect it and know what you're buying.
so it's
Need to
buyer
Buyer
beware?
beware.
Okay.
And the thing is if we have the tax sale, and before she takes possession of it, if she doesn't mow it, she doesn't take care of it, and it becomes condemned through the city building commissioner or county building commissioner, you know, that's kind of on them.
So they just gotta do their due
They
diligence
have to
before
do
they
the
buy.
due diligence. I mean, yeah, a tax sale is not
I've never
really
bought one,
to
so
be
I didn't know the
a
process.
moneymaker, it's to get
Back on the rolls.
Get them back on the rolls.
Get rid of black, get them on the rolls.
Right, exactly.
Since, yeah, I didn't have any answers for her.
Yeah, there isn't.
Tell you.
Buyer beware. I mean, it really is. It's, you hate to see that, but that's what it is. The only other thing, I mean, other than salaries that, like I said, were increased was for the dues and subscriptions, and that is because the amounts have changed from what the state requires, the State Treasurers Association requires from us. We have to pay a percentage of our salary, of my salary to, and then it's $25. Similar to what Jan said yesterday, that hers is. We do basically the same thing. So that was only a $40 increase. I had to move money in January of this year because we were short $40. So
So your non-employee expense increases, if you take out the 25 grand for the lawyer, which is added in here now, but it's less than,
it's $1,540.
yeah, it's 1,500.
In raised, yeah.
Okay, but
And 1,000 of that, well, really, 1,000 of that is a part-time person. I have a part-time person that works during tax time. Obviously we had to train her and everything. She came in at the lowest minimum, the part-time minimum at $12. And that basically, the $1,000 was to get her to, a few more hours to work, but also to get her a 50 cent an hour raise is what that is for. So she works, roughly about 1,100 to 1,200 hours per year. And then we wanted her to get a little more time, to where she will come back. Cause now we've had her this our second year, so I don't want to train another one. Honestly, they're hard to find as well. I searched and searched, for a part-time, because of, it's not all year round. It's just a, seasonal, position part-time. So it's very tough to find someone like that.
question.
Uh-huh.
Fund 4923, tax sale administration. Are those funds from the tax sale?
What was it?
It's Fund
Oh.
4923.
That's not in my budget. So,
That's 4923 admin, that's the administrator who's handling the sale. So whatever company is
the
being,
vendor, yeah.
utilized in order to run the sale,
I-
that's where they're paid out of.
Is that like an unappropriated fund, somebody funds? Yeah, there is a lot of them. I mean, you know how many there are? How many unappropriated funds are all, just off the top of your head?
Connie doesn't care. but I
And
think
then,
there's
like I say, the bulk of the rest of the money, 23,000, a little over 23,000, is raises from the salary study. And what I used for everybody but my chief deputy and myself was the, I have to get to that, is the, internal base salary is what we used. The recommendation on all those, on the other 5 of my employees. And then we just followed the, average, similar to everybody else did for, the average salary for me. And then I didn't do 85, I did 80%. It's a little less than actually, it's like 79.7% for my chief deputy. So I didn't do the full 85.
Don't worry, I did the math for you already.
Yeah, thank you.
Matt, what I'm kind of doing is on the leveling column. For first grade, so,
midpoint.
look at that.
And then,
Topic tonight, Brad, who you picking for tonight's game?
I don't know who's playing.
Chiefs and the Ravens. Opening season.
College
Leave your
football,
man
it's
card at
better.
the door when you're walking out. Leave your man card at the podium.
I watch college football, I don't watch NFL.
Last week.
In my equipment, fund, that is for 3 computers. That keeps me on pace with my replacement plan. This year, it was supposed to be 4. We, were cut last year from that, went down to, 2. And then, oh, well, really, I guess it was 3. But then we had 2 printers that went out, so that took some of that money. So I just, last month, transferred, so that's why, but, that's for three computers, and it's probably gonna be a little, you know, a little under that, but we also still have the, again, I mentioned yesterday, the mobile home permit fees, that we have put in the general fund. That's what I will be probably asking for some of that back on, and to replace hopefully a laptop. We have 3 laptops that are from 2020.
And Ryan, one of the things we did yesterday, and Matt's been asking, is like, what were the ending balances in 23?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like, his were like $20,
Yeah. I
you know,
haven't- yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I
Pretty-
heard you.
pretty-
I use my
That
money.
was pretty consistent with that. I did hear that. I heard I'd say about 95% of what happened yesterday. I was watching all day, but I would get in and out of the vehicle
Yeah.
sometimes, so.
but I think that should make you feel better about like, people are using what they're actually budgeting.
And I love
for,
that he's
so-
got a plan, a rotation plan for the computers. I remember that from last year when
Yeah,
we were talking
yeah.
about it.
So this will be, next year will be our 3rd year to do that, so we're 3/4 the way through it, so,
So- Basically, what I'm hearing is you have no room to cut anything.
not really.
Okay.
You don't have a lot of options on this
No, he
thing.
doesn't.
Other than the 25, I mean,
Have
if
a
you
lot of
guys,
these.
whatever you decide to do with that, that could be out, but
I still think that
other than
I
that,
think it belongs with you.
that's whatever you guys wanna do, yeah.
We'll pull it out of commission.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Volk.
Page 8, we've got the recorder. Jan, you're up.
Perpetuation fund, spook. I always try to get you to put everything in your fund.
So yesterday, Ryan, we took her ask for a deputy 2,
Mm-hmm.
left it in her perpetuation. And this is basically all you got for us.
Another one doesn't have a lot of wiggle room there.
What was the final number, Jess,
For,
after we took out the deputy 2?
yeah, fine.
Got 36,295. It should,
114,819.
so you originally was requesting to move your deputy from the perpetuation fund and they,
Put it in both.
She puts it in both.
Yeah, every year we
Decided to
put it
keep
in
it
both
fun.
places because through the years, when times were tough for the
Right.
county general, they used to pay more of the salaries. And then they would put them in perpetuation with the intent, like some other departments,
right?
to take them back out. So it might have been 1 or 2, then 3, then back to 2. And so for the last several years, perpetuation has paid 3 of the 3 deputies' salaries.
You've always been willing to be a big help when it comes to that.
But yeah, we always put it in both places, just
To see which one we're gonna go for. We're highly unpredictable.
And then, I mean, your other funds are all outside of county general. I don't think we had any issue with any of those unless, Ryan, you have something you wanted to discuss that you weren't around here for yesterday.
No, ma'am, there's very little wiggle room with this one.
Yeah. You got it easy, Jan.
All right, so go back on the report.
thank you.
But yeah. Did while I was calculating. Oh, I didn't. 4%.
We're going in the sheriff.
Is that next?
Yes.
On the
Yeah.
sheriff,
Oh, he's back. Okay. Myself out loud.
Eugene, you asked a couple questions yesterday that I have answers for you for. One of them was, can we spend lit money on vehicles and computers? And the answer is yeah, there are other counties that do that. I talked to a sheriff this morning from a donut county in Indianapolis, and they do that. So it's just how it's written up. The second one was the pension balance. As of yesterday, this year alone, it's up 1.9 million, or right at 9.5%. I was kind of surprised by that number, but that's pretty freaking good.
Yeah, it is.
Our actuarial assumption, our target is 6.5% per year, so we're doing well on that. And then since inception with Baird, the company that we use, in 2019, we're averaging 7.26 per year, so yeah, it's doing well.
You spoke on that pension. This is one of the things I'm sure it was brought up yesterday. It looks like I missed that part of it. I know we always put quite a bit in there, and the council puts quite a bit in there. What's the difference for it being this big of a difference from last year?
Well, we always put in we always request the highest number of the three that they give us.
So that's what it is. So you requested
cut
that
it.
last
We
year, we
cut it
went
to
lower, so
450.
that's why
Correct.
it's so much different than what it was actually budgeted.
Yes.
It makes sense. All right.
Yeah, so they did that last year too, at like, they came in at like, let's say
Right.
1,459,000.
We cut it
They
back.
took the 459,218, and we took the 1 million out of our council lit. So together, they got to their, and I think that was the mid plan.
Mid-range
Mhm.
also, yeah.
And the mid plan for 25 would be 1.473-ish.
Right.
So, we,
What did Ed say yesterday about if we do it after 10 years, we're caught up type of thing? Was that right?
Yes. Yeah, if you do the high end, yeah.
If we keep going. Which is the 1.4 or not?
1.7,
1.7
that's what
is
they
the
put
high
in
end.
for.
I don't know which one's the best, but all I can say is the last thing Ron Quakenbush said to me when we walked out on his last day, he told me, keep an eye on that sheriff pension
Oh,
plan.
yeah, that's
He used to
always.
always talk about that pension plan, make
That was-
sure we're
that
putting
Missed him,
money
he
in.
was here yesterday, Ryan.
I seen him get up and talk.
That was Ron's plan. So the 1.7 number, that's the accelerated funding contribution. And that is a 10-year plan, to get you caught up to where you're fully funded. The middle number is a 15-year plan, and the lowest number, it doesn't even give a number. But, it's kind of like paying your credit card. You could pay the minimum on your credit card, and if you looked at the small print on your statement, it tells you, at this number, you'll get your current balance, if you don't spend another penny, paid off in 24 years or something, so. And like you said yesterday, for years in the early 2000s, the can was just kicked down the road. There was nothing, 35,000, nothing. So that's why we're in the position now where it's been underfunded, but I can't complain. You guys have been great the last several years, so.
Can I ask a question on uniforms? There's a clothing allowance in 101. And then there's a operating supplies uniform.
The operating supplies uniforms is what we use to buy. It's now combined. It's two different things now. One, every time we get new hires, we outfit them for the year. So that's where that comes from.
Operating.
Correct. And then the other part of that is vests. We have to replace vests every so many years for everybody. So it's on a cycle at this point to replace so many every year.
That's under clothing allowance.
Well, it's under that operating supplies.
So
They combine the uniforms that we use to buy for the new guys, plus the vests are in that now. Clothing allowance is what is given to the officers, twice a year, half of it each payout, for them to maintain and keep
Mhm.
uniforms to look presentable.
Remember, we used to have a certain line item for every single officer is $1,500
Correct.
per officer, and like 75 of them or whatever
Right.
the number
And now
was.
it's all combined on one line, and I just give you the total amount I need for all of them.
Which is nice. I will say it's been nice to have a smaller budget book this year too.
I like it. I think that was Tanya's plan doing that.
And
Hold on.
understand that a new hire doesn't get a clothing allowance until after they've been on the department a year. Thus, I might have all 43 clothing allowances in there, but I may not use them all, depending on how many people we lose if they don't hit their,
When do you make
Your
those
target.
payments?
I'm sorry, what?
When do you make those clothing allowance payments?
Usually like May and November.
Yeah,
Cause there's zero.
that is not correct. I did actually ask her, about that one. There is actually $45,750 left in that line right now.
So the balance is 45,375 or the spend was,
What's left in there is $45,750.
okay, thank you.
And the reason it's not half of 75 is because you had some open positions.
Correct. Well, now, but just because they didn't get their first half, they may hit their
Sure.
year and they get their second half. So,
Before we get off the pension, we would reduce that from what we talked about to 473,447.
We won't reduce it that much.
Well, so keep in mind, I mean, it's two parts here, because and I know we got our supplemental lit, but according to this, we still need to cut our lit by 1.3, so we may not want to do 1 million out of our county lit. We may want to go more halvesies.
Well, I was even going like a 60-40 more in the lit side.
We need to go less in
That's what
our,
I'm saying, take more out of lit,
Oh.
right? Because don't you say we're over on lit?
yes.
Put less
So
into the lit. is what I'm
reduce
saying.
the lit and increase on the
Yes.
sheriff's side, yeah.
All told, outside of,
For me, I guess that's my aspiration would be to reduce this to 473,447.
We can do that for now. I'm okay with that.
477,
Yeah, 473,447.
That middle,
477, correct?
473,
447.
447, okay. Well, I'm sure you already got the number, Bill, what that total reduction is.
Ryan, could you ask that again, please?
One of you guys got the number on what that total reduction would be for that lit?
The lit would be at $1 million.
saying keep lit at 1 million like we did last year.
Well, mine says 1.7, so wouldn't
That's
that
in
be
the sheriff's
reducing?
budget.
you're in the sheriff's budget right now. not
Reduce
lit
the
side.
sheriff's budget.
Not gonna use the high figure, we're using the mid figure.
we're gonna use mid, which is 1.4. We're not using what he has.
Because
he's gonna put in the most he can to help fill it back up.
I got that, I guess I was on, I didn't realize we were in the lit on the other one, so 1.4 on the sheriff's?
No. 473, 447.
That's what's coming out of the sheriff's side.
And then we'll still try to do the 1 million on the lit side.
It's like 1.3 million less than what he requested, right?
Yes,
That's what I was asking, what the
Yes.
total
yes.
less on the overall number
Yeah.
would have been.
Matt, my spreadsheet's just the actual number, so I'm not looking at reductions, but I know you like to write that down. I don't have that
I like
number.
visuals.
300,000, less than that.
1.3,
Yeah, but you gotta add in the million from lit.
right, but that's in a different,
Right.
Yeah.
but,
no, I mean, the total, he'll get the,
Yeah, I mean, you'll get.
So
1.4.
non-employee, non-pension, non-employee,
So it's 1.2 million less.
92,651, an additional increase in 2020. Oh, that's with lit. Sorry, hold on.
one more filter.
So if I'm here-
81,200, out of county general, 81,200 in additional expense. There's the communication radios, there's the vehicles, there's, uniforms, but that,
So, am I hearing this correctly? Because I felt like this was a little confused. So they had requested in county general in the sheriff's budget, 1.715, and we're saying, no, that number's gonna be 473,447. So that's off their total, the county general would be $1.242,283.
Sure, I haven't done the math, but
Okay, that's what,
Okay.
I just wanna make sure that was right off the top, that's what's less.
what else did we have?
As far as
general.
I know, we probably talked
How much
about
is that?
this yesterday. What was that communication line?
What the reduction was?
That's the cell phones and Wi-Fi's that the officers have to have in order,
240.
I mean, that's how our computers work and they send and get
Yeah.
calls and.
But it used to be
It used to
somewhere
be-
else.
It used to be in contractual services. And they got pulled out and put down here.
Right. But the contractual services stayed the same.
Because all of the other maintenance contracts that we have to have for the different machines and the different, services that we have, those all increased.
To the tune of 50,000?
Didn't go up 50 total, did it? Well, and remember, I also told you last year, I was begging and borrowing and robbing different spots to pay contractual services
Yeah,
just to try and save you money, and I'm to the point that I can't beg, borrow, and steal anymore.
right, no, that's fair.
That's what the sheriff standing next to you.
I know.
I'm not a crook.
81,200 in non-employee related increase,
81.2?
not including the pension. I'm just tracking it that way for everybody, because it gives me some sense of first lines of areas that I would look at when you're managing your budget, so.
2/3 of that is in holiday pay and overtime pay.
No, I didn't, no, it's everything in the 200 line, the 200 numbers, starting at 211.
I got you. So what's the big
Hey,
increases?
speaking of that, ladies, so just, I always put it in my notes, 100 level, or like salaries and benefits, right? What is 200?
Right here on this little fancy
It actually
dancy
says?
notebook.
What 200s are?
Communication? Nothing last year, 50,000.
200 is supplies.
Communications is something they pulled out of its new line
That's
item.
not form.
They had us pull cell phones
I know
and
where my sheet
Wi-Fi
went.
out of contractual services, which is where I had
got
always paid it before. And I had to put it in a whole new line,
So it's
in
not
the 500
necessarily
series.
a new expense, it's just,
It just got
showing
shoved
up
somewhere else.
different.
Right.
I got you.
It's just like the operating supplies uniforms. That's a whole new line, and it now encompasses what I used to have for uniforms
Right.
and vests.
I got you.
I noticed,
Did you find what you're looking for there?
I'm
Jessica?
borrowing his, I've lost mine in my stack, but I feel like in the past, I remember seeing a lot of 400 level,
Oh.
and now I'm seeing a lot of 500, so was there a change?
Correct, yes,
Okay.
because on the state level, when we go to report it, when we have to report all of our expenditures, revenues, yada, 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 they have the debt in 400s and then all the capital outlays are in 500s. So we okayed that with the, both DLGF, State Board of Accounts, like, covered that with it all around and asked if it was okay since we were doing our financial system, like, redoing it.
Yeah,
If that was okay to use the same as the state does, for that way for reporting reasons and exporting and all that.
Yeah.
Works out, but they said yes, so that's what we did.
Okay.
So all the,
so I'm looking at series level, so like, 'cause I do a lot of nerdy stuff on the side. I have like a database going back, I have a database going back to like 2012. And just to make sure that if I try to make things match up, right, because like sometimes I have to go back and change department names if they've changed, and, because I pull it all out of Gateway. And so I just want to make sure that what used to be a 400 series, I need to now update to a 500, so that any reporting I do for my own purposes,
Okay.
I can track.
Want to do lit? Sheriff lit?
Yeah, let's do it.
I want to say we were just, before we came up here, we were also talking about computers, trying to figure out, we've got approximately 33 desktops and approximately 46 laptops, so that's almost 80 computers. So we'll be
33
coming to you for-
desktops, what? How many laptops?
And laptops,
How many laptops?
about 45 or 46.
That include the mobile ones in the cars?
Yeah.
which we've already started replacing some of those.
We'll be coming to you for a couple $1 million next year, unless you want us to keep buying those out of commissary.
You're welcome to keep buying
Got
the commissary.
So hold that thought,
I
sorry.
just wanted to
Yeah.
bring that up.
Yeah.
So that, we didn't put that in our little, lit number. Should we have? There's salaries, body cameras, video recording, vests, vehicles, radios, but no computers. But that's
I think you're talking about your wish list, your 3 to 5 year wish list.
Right.
No, those, I mean, they have to be replaced, yeah.
I think that's what Matt's saying for his like look.
Yeah.
And you guys
report
worked that
that
out on
he's
your
doing,
thing.
yeah.
You give him.
But the laptops and the computers, we didn't put that on that yet.
That's because
We've been
we have
covering it.
historically, we've been buying those ourselves out of commissary. We're saving the council money by doing that.
Before we go to lit, can I ask just one quick question? I know, do you still have like a mileage restriction on your guys to kind of watch gas costs and stuff?
We do.
I noticed you guys are ahead of schedule pretty good on your, fuel. If it gets down to nitty gritty and we have to start pinching pennies, is there any wiggle room on your request?
We may have some money.
I know it's the same as the last time, but it seems like
I
you're doing
know.
pretty good on it.
Yeah. Our guys have been doing really well on that. I've been a real naughty on them about leaving their cars running, both in the summertime and the wintertime, when they're not in their cars. But, I mean, we may have a little bit to give back this year, actually, so.
It's good to know.
Yeah.
Well, it used to be back in the day when we were all young and dinosaurs roamed the earth, you always let the car run because if you shut it off, it'd vapor lock on you.
You never knew.
I still leave mine
And so
running.
they'd leave them run, but now with electronic congestion, and it's not so as important to leave them run. You know, as long as they're not trying to run their lights and stuff.
I went inside grocery shopping the other day and left my car running.
So can I ask something here?
Yeah.
Or play something out, I guess,
Where you at, Matt?
in lit public safety.
What page?
Sheriff or jail?
Sheriff,
Sheriff's? Okay.
What page is it?
50,
I'll bring up jail too, just,
2 of them together.
well, I wanna talk about the allocation for our public safety lits, because prosecutor is also lit public safety, right, Tanya?
Yep.
And then jail, sheriff, and then council.
Correct.
Which is basically the pension coverage, right? So as this whole lit conversation has gone on, there's a conversation about lit allocation. I have a question around lit allocation. Public safety lit is all encompassing for the county and for the cities. Muncie, being the population center and highest population, takes the largest chunk of public safety money. We get 1/3 of the overall public safety lit for the county. I just wanted to you hadn't heard me, like, speech on that, that is it. Because in essence, we can only get 1/3 of that money. And from a sheriff's department standpoint, we're basically, it pays for 1 deputy, in essence, is all it really covers, right? Am I
The little
saying that
other
right?
supplies.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
there.
Barely, right? A couple,
Right.
$4,000. So I
She's
mean,
talking about sheriff's. Okay.
and then from a jail standpoint, you know, last year's budget, I'll just use,
It
Yeah,
covers
with-
13 people.
covers 13, so about 843,000 was the number roughly last year. We pull another million out to just cover the pension, and then the prosecutors get, I mean, last year's budget for the prosecutor lit public safety, which covers a couple deputy prosecutors, well, they've asked for more, but the investigator, some other things is another 720, so, majority of our lit is going to the jail. Well, really, majority of it goes to the pension, cover pension. So followed by the jail, followed by the prosecutor's office, and what's left over goes to a deputy. So, just context as we're talking about how lit gets allocated for public safety in our county budget. It's not a lot.
It's not
You
what?
asked,
It's
you
not
asked-
a lot.
You asked a question yesterday about when you have conversations with people about, I think you were kind of leading to if lit gets increased,
you know, what are you gonna do with it? Because people have a right to know what are you gonna do with it. And obviously, the sheriff's pension is a big one. I heard Fred talking about, you know, there's a survey, you know, for dispatchers. They need more dispatchers. And for those of you who are new on the council last year, in your second year, when we built the jail, you know, we had a survey. We actually had 2 of them done about how many corrections officers we would need to staff the jail. The first one came back and said we were 18 short. The second one said we were 8 or 9 short. I don't remember. So, I mean, utilizing additional lit money to fully staff the jail and to pay off the pension are to me, 2 obvious upfront expenditures if that gets increased. You know, right now, knock on wood, you know, we talked yesterday, we're only 2 short in the jail, but, you know, with a decent pay raise, you know, and if that were increased, if our manpower was increased, I think you'd probably see a safer environment, no doubt. You might see lawsuits go down. You guys don't get lawsuits. The commissioners, the county attorney gets the lawsuit. But you'd be shocked to see the number of lawsuits that we get, you know, and especially when the federal inmates came in. We knew that was gonna happen. I warned you that was gonna happen. And it does. Most of them are, of course, are frivolous and they get thrown out, but, it still takes manpower and money to show up in court and make that happen. But to your point, Matt, I mean, those are obvious answers to that.
What's the balance on the pension that we are behind? 17 million roughly?
I don't know that answer.
Because if we're paying 1.7 million,
You're not paying about 1.4.
I know, but if we did the 10-year plan and 1.7 million gets us caught up in 10 years.
That's considered fully funded. And I think that's,
Okay.
I don't know the actuarial, how they do that, what they consider fully funded. I don't, I'm not that smart mathematically. But there's a, you know, a formula that they use. Say you've got this many people drawing benefits now, you've got this many people that can draw benefits, and 15, what the benefits are. I don't know the formula, I'm not that smart. But there is a number that they consider it fully funded. But, you know.
You're never
And what do we have, like-
fully funded, are you? Year over year, you gotta contribute.
No, so I think we're considered like 76% fully funded right now.
And part of
That's
that
a little-
pension, the fact that we got like, was it 4 living sheriffs? And you're about to retire yourself pretty soon?
Steve Ball, George Sheridan, Ray Dudley was only in for 3.5 years, so
He's still drawing, right?
Eugene, what were you gonna say?
we have 3,
And then a couple of years you'll be on there as well, so
I can assure you.
that's, I can assure you,
God willing.
those are significant draws. on
Well,
this
and you
pension.
remember, his draw is gonna be a lot larger than those other sheriffs too, because it's your top 3
Right.
years,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I
So
mean,
that's
sheriff
20
covers 4 years, so once they're in there, they get their top 3 years. their
Right,
pension's
But
but
you're
based off
talking
that.
about my
prior
salary
to
compared to
Tony,
previous
the
sheriffs.
salary for the sheriff was around 90,000.
That's right. When you came in, it went up. I forgot about that.
Eugene has a question, but one more quick question, which is, we don't know what the 24% fully funded number is though, the total, okay?
And what you said quietly, Matt, is correct. Even if we do get to 100% fully funded, we still have to pay into the pension.
Well, you do.
Also, I have one question for Matt.
Yeah, that number greatly decreases.
Yes,
Yeah,
severely, but it's
because
not zero.
Madison County did that last year. They dumped in, I think they used ARP money, and they dumped
Bunch
in
of
like
it.
7 million or 8 million, and
Gotcha.
please don't hold me to this number, internet. But they dumped a ton of money into it to get fully funded, or right about there. So now they're contributing like, I don't know, $400,000 a year now versus 1.7, 1.8. Yeah.
I think it's an important figure to put into this plan, so we need to figure that out somehow.
I'll dig that up for you.
Thank you.
You know, had we had a little control over where that art money went, we may have done something like that too.
If there were a time that interest rates went down, we could investigate pension bonds. Many school corporations did that around 2000, when the legislature allowed them to do that, where they could bond out to fully fund their pension plans and actually save money because the rates were so low that the pension payments were less than what they were having to contribute.
So they're just making a bond payment each year instead of paying towards it.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Good idea.
That takes even higher math.
It's already way past me.
Okay,
So,
thanks.
so
Sorry to
basically,
get off on
all,
a tangent
every,
there.
all of your, yeah, there's not really anything here in your lit.
Well, you already made the correction yesterday
Yeah,
on the, FICA. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that one's done.
wait,
Yes.
Yeah.
16,659.
I want to mention something here. A lot of people have this
Yeah.
lit tax keeps coming up. I'm almost certain, I could be wrong on this, but I'm almost certain that this takes multiple levels of boards to vote on that, even if everybody up here voted for it. So just for
Hold
the
on,
judicial.
let me explain that real quick, if you don't mind. Because I almost brought it up, but I
Glad you
didn't
did.
want to keep the tangent going. But let me get to the tangent again.
Mhm.
Public safety lit is a countywide, it requires the vote of the county, council,
county lit council.
county lit council, however you call it. Majority votes come from the city. We have a vote. Theoretically, they could raise that without us.
Towns have a percentage
If
of
they
the
were at
vote.
100, yeah, if they voted majority, we may not be able to stop that. But there are other lits. There is a jail lit, there is a EMS lit, there is a, judicial lit, and there is the PSAP lit, but that's a public safety for all too, I think.
It's off the top, it goes to us.
Oh, off the top
Off
it
the
goes for
top,
us,
and then
yeah,
it divides.
okay, yeah, that's right. So those are county specific. We control those. The full council controls certified chairs, public safety, edit, and the property tax relief.
Mhm.
Yeah. I did get a question at lunch from some fine young gentleman asking if, what our property tax relief was at. I think it's 0.25.
0.25.
0.25. Because every time we raise that, the max levy would change, right?
Makes sense, yeah.
Not to get down that road, but anyway, so that's to explain that, and so again, and I know that in some initial conversations, representing us, the county, the conversation was, I'm not necessarily for a public safety lit because it is shared amongst the group and we only get a third of it. Versus we have expenses that nobody else has in the jail, in the courts.
EMS.
We now have EMS, that whole dynamic is a whole other story, but ultimately, we have those components and they're specific to our county. So that's the broader topic that's been mildly discussed to date. Our plan, my plan, and with Jessica's help, was to gather what kind of money do we actually need for lit. I asked everybody in public safety. I've actually left out people. I didn't even talk to the prosecutor's office or public defenders, but so even in that figure there, to find out what that 5-year plan actually looks like or needs actually look like, some of which you were seeing we didn't even get, big ones like the pension, that exist, to say this is how much in the next 5 to 7 years we may need to come up with or find to get to fund our public safety exclusively. So that's the exercise from accounting, because I would never feel comfortable saying, sure, let's raise the lid. It is the easy answer. You said it earlier. It is. Check the box. Good. Have we done everything to make sure we've got our expenses in line? I would argue probably not. And then we really haven't said, how much are we actually trying to raise? So that's what we're trying to get to. Well, I didn't really need to go.
And
No, but thank you for everyone who's been participating and getting Matt that information, because it does just give a better picture. It's not something we've tried to tackle in the past, so. And Matt's graciously taken on that.
And is it
Yeah.
also, and the other question was, and I appreciate the explanation, Matt. That was, I'm sure, very helpful. Is it also as simple as a majority vote, or is it one of those things that requires a 2/3 vote or anything like that? So 4 out of 7.
Yeah, simple majority.
Thank you.
All right, so do we have any other things on these ones? What else? Are we on sheriff public, we don't need public safety for sheriff, right? We did that,
Did the, I mean,
so we move into the next.
I do want to verify, what was the change that we made? Because now I'm questioning if I put,
The pension.
It was the
No, no,
FICA
FICA.
on
FICA went to
1170, 129.
because they had to go up.
Went down.
No,
Went
it
down.
went down.
Oh, I see, 4-6 from
It's
6-8.
the jails
Sorry,
that we'll have
yep,
to discuss.
okay,
Do
yep.
do you have the one?
I had the 4675.
1,169 deduction for 4,675.
Yep, I have it.
Okay.
I don't have it in my book, but I will
Okay.
write it in my book too.
Do we want to do the jail now since you said
Since
there?
you're,
Just the regular jail or lit?
before we leave out, since your other supplies, you said yes, that's sort of a backup.
I'm sorry,
You don't use your other supplies unless you need to, you use up what you,
I always leave money in lit to use till last,
right.
because that is what council has always asked me to do in the past. Will I need it? Probably, but I will leave it till the very last thing to spend.
Do we need to increase it 1,000 for next year, do you think?
No,
And we leave,
We can
move
leave
it back to 4,000?
wait a minute. Which one are you in now, the sheriff lit or the jail lit?
Sheriff lit.
89,
Oh, it was 4,000, see, and I don't remember that.
You've got a balance, I think, of 2843 in there now.
Right. Yeah, go ahead and leave it at 4.
Thank you.
taking
Thank
that
you.
1,000 out.
That wasn't anything that we combined.
240.
No, not that lit supplies, no.
Okay, jail,
You going jail lit or regular jail?
regular jail,
Yeah.
Page,
21.
don't, do not ask me.
Sheriff jail is 21.
I was gonna say, I didn't remember a $4,000.
Right, so.
Yep.
What do we have outside of, what was the number outside?
you pretty well had it on your,
For too many times. All right, so for jail,
let me get signed up. Hey, Ryan. Hey, correct this on 211, 220, and 240, I got arrows there. We can get Ryan up to speed. Okay. Page 20. Down here at the bottom.
Huh?
Didn't you have some backwards numbers?
Okay, so which one are you asking me about?
211 and 220?
under the regular jail,
Yes.
So office supplies, what do you mean I had backwards numbers?
I don't have any.
I don't know
changes.
either, but I
I
somehow.
don't have any change.
Now, 220, you guys were asking me which one was which, and honestly, with the combination of accounts and things splitting out, I couldn't remember what was what. So 220, operating supplies, is actually inmate uniforms. Okay,
It's not operating supplies uniforms, it's inmate uniforms,
correct,
not toilet paper, cleaning supplies, maintenance stuff.
correct. That's further down.
Okay.
That's the other supplies, which is 240,
240 is TP, et cetera.
yes.
Okay.
Cleaning supplies, paper products, bug treatments, any of those kinds of things that we have to function for the jail. That is 240.
Okay.
220 is all inmate uniforms, and when we talk about that, that is their shoes, their clothes, their bedding, their mattresses, their mattress pad covers, all those types of things that we have to supply, including bath towels and washcloths and all of those things. And I will tell you that we have taken a huge chunk of that and also bought from commissary to try and help the county budget. So all the towels and washcloths for the last 2 years have been out of the commissary rather than this budget.
Okay,
biggest pieces of the pie is that increase in food, right?
Correct.
And then the contractual services, which we talked about, was the medical contract increases.
311
the
is the medical
contract.
contract,
Yeah,
yes.
that is it.
And that's set. I don't have any wiggle room on that. That is exactly what she sent me. That is exactly what I asked for. 324, obviously, we added in the cell phones and Wi-Fi's. That's the new line the auditor gave us. And I took that out of other contractual services before, which is,
311 right above it.
which one is that now? Uh, 311,
And maybe professional
310,
services,
professional services, yes.
that's like if you don't have a contract.
No, professional services 310, that is what we have to do to test. We do a psychological test on every CO that comes in to work at the jail. If they fail that test, then they aren't hired. So that's an automatic. And that hasn't been spent yet. He is at the end of the test we have, so we are getting ready to purchase, so that will come out.
And a quick question here, on your part-time money on 198,
Mhm.
like you didn't use any of it. 55,000 last year, still got almost 50,000 in it.
That's as of June. What's the balance now of part-time in the jail?
198.
198.
Part of the Fed money.
Oh,
is
from the
reimbursed.
tornado?
And,
No.
well, no,
No,
Fed
for
money.
transports,
Oh,
for
okay.
inmates.
Because there's money coming back too, right, from the,
Fuel, which we haven't been taking that now.
Okay.
We've allowed that to just go into your,
no, I mean, wasn't there money coming back from the natural disaster stuff?
for the tornado in Selma.
Yeah,
He just talked about that last week. We don't have any idea what that number is.
Yeah, I
gonna
don't.
be.
okay,
What do we do for part-time?
500.
Yeah, so.
okay.
What do we do with part-time out of this budget? What
Um,
be paid for this?
Part-time correction officers,
We have part-time.
we do. Some people, they don't wanna work full-time. They may be older or whatever, and they've already, for whatever reason, they just don't wanna work full-time, but they're trained, so heck yeah, we'll take them part-time.
Utilizing them. All right,
Yeah.
I got you.
And then also, we have some part-time transport officers that are driving inmates around the state.
That's right. I remember you
You
saying
said
that.
yesterday.
I remember. How much?
42, 194.50.
Still got quite a bit in there.
Well, and remember when we drive the federal inmates to court, we're reimbursed on that on an hourly rate. So even though we spend it, we're getting
Can we drop it back down to
percent of that back.
55?
That's what I've seen. You think we
Put it
could
back to
make it
last
what it
year's
was
number?
last year's number?
What?
What Jessica said, can we make it last year's number?
It's at 60, it was
Oh.
at 55, it's at 64 now, requested.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll just come ask
9,000.
you for more money if I need it.
That's what we're here for. We're just
Got
the
42,000
ATM.
in there.
Yeah, I know, but we got a long way to go before we're done.
Yeah, make it last year's number.
Okay, thank you. I want to be mindful of everyone's time. It's 5 o'clock.
Get through this. Anything else on the jail? You're not asking for any new COs at this point?
Not this
Okay.
year, no.
And then in lit, public safety for jail,
Let me make some corrections for you.
Page 21, not
52.
21, 52.
Page 52. Okay, so on page 52, the FICA amount needs to be 45,579.
change that yesterday.
Perf needs to be 66,730. So to account for that 27,705 increase, we are going to reduce the contractual services by 5,000, which is 311.
Okay.
119 holiday by 5,000. $126 overtime by 5,000.
47,
I'm sorry, what?
that'd be 47,000.
No, I'm reducing to cover that overage that.
I'm saying you reduced it from 52,000 to
Right,
47,000.
yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm just looking at my notes. I'm not looking at what the totals were on the thing.
Which one was that?
That
And
was
then
overtime.
173 health insurance, I'm gonna reduce it by 12,705, and that covers the entire amount that was incorrect.
What was the last number?
12,705.
And what was that on?
Health insurance, 173.
So the total's 115,186.
115, 186.
Should be.
Thank you, Nancy, on that.
All right,
Appreciate that very much.
cool. All right, well, it's 5:02. So we will wrap up and, be back here at 8:30 in the morning. See you tomorrow.